with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on facebook.com/livenowdt, and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. So however you're tuning into the show, thank you so much for listening in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Very excited to be having you on today's broadcast, and appreciate you so much for being a part of today's show, and truly hope that you're having yourselves a fantastic day. Hopefully you had a fantastic weekend. My days are all kinds of screwed up. All I know is when basketball's on, I do smiling. So that's I love watching the tournament, and I'm a big fan of the tournament. So love getting to see the brackets and see so many games. My favorite part of the tournament is really the beginning. The first four I've definitely gotten more and more into since traveling to Dayton myself to see Syracuse and St. Bonaventure and Radford and company in the first four just a few years ago. So be able to be able to do that was huge, and it was a lot of fun for me and experiencing that. So now I feel more invested, I should say. I feel more invested into the first four. And then, from there, I love the beginning of the tournament. I love when there's basketball all day long from noon until midnight. Seriously, half a day of basketball, and then you get up and you do it all over again. Selfishly, I would like to do that for multiple days, to have that happen where I got basketball all day and then I got basketball all day in the tournament, and would be awesome. So definitely love the round of 64 because that's all it is. All day long is just basketball, and it's so much fun, and you get to see teams from all over the country, teams that you don't normally see, and then the teams that you're used to, and it's just cool, and it's different, and it's so much fun. So, I don't have to sell it to the people that already know it. The tournament's incredible, but there's just something about it that is just so special, and it's so different, and it's so unique. And so I'm so happy we got to see the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight on the men's side of things. Syracuse, as you know, unfortunately fell in that round. I had Syracuse losing in that round because I just felt like Houston was going to be too much. At the beginning of this tournament, I saw that matchup with Syracuse and Houston, and I was like, you know what? I believe Syracuse can get there. I believe they can make it happen. And over the weekend, I put out my thing saying, like, I'm hoping that they win. Like, I'm pulling for them. I put them out there. But in my actual bracket itself, I had Houston over Syracuse because I just thought that Houston was going to do too much of being the number one rebounding team in the country against a team that typically struggled all year rebounding the ball. I just felt like Syracuse was not going to change that in time to be ready for that matchup, and they weren't. So Syracuse losing 62-46 in the round of the Sweet 16. Nothing to cry home about, nothing to... obviously they had themselves a very good season and a strong season, and I appreciate them and I respect them, and they went as far as I thought they would go and predicted they would go, and so I'm happy they got to the Sweet 16, and I'm happy to see that in my bracket, Syracuse is all clean going through my bracket, my hometown. So good to see that. Good to see Syracuse advance, and tough to see them go. But Houston, to me, I believe, is a team that can get to the national championship game, and that's where I have them in my bracket. They're still alive. So is Gonzaga. 3 of my 4 Final Four were alive going into yesterday, with Florida State still alive. And with Florida State losing to Michigan, I only have half of my Final Four left. But ironically, and in a very cool way, and in an amazing and awesome way, the only 2 Final Four I have left are the 2 that I had advancing to the national championship. So the ones that I have still alive are the ones that could help me win this whole thing as I went into this weekend first in the Wake Up Call Bracket Challenge of everybody that's joined. And once again, I want to thank everybody that joined. So very, very cool to be first in there. And I have Gonzaga versus Houston, so we shall see. With that being stated, inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, we have a jam-packed show for you today with 3 awesome guests. Inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', giving you the list of topics for the day. Jason Leone is going to be joining us in just a second here. Jason Leone coming to us from the Oswego State Lakers men's basketball team, and speaking with us today about what it's like to be in NCAA Division III and see Division I play and Division III not play. He did not have a 2020-2021 he didn't have a 2020-2021 season, and so not having a season this season, navigating through that. We'll talk with him about that, as well as his thoughts on March Madness and so much more, and the disparity between Division I and Division III. And so we'll talk about all of that. Then we'll get into my conversation at 10 a.m. Eastern Time with Mike Aresco from the American Athletic Conference, who will join me to speak on Houston advancing as they're part of the American, his thoughts on the Houston Cougars and what they've done up to this point, advancing themselves to the round of 8. So getting to the Elite 8, we'll talk with him on that, as well as on Memphis and if they should have made the NCAA tournament, as the Memphis Tigers won the men's basketball NIT over the weekend as well. And then we'll round out the show speaking on officiating and how he thinks it's going, someone who's been officiating and now a coordinator of officiating, connected to the world of refereeing for decades upon decades, and that is Mr. Mike Kitts, who will join us at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time to give his thoughts on the tournament thus far. So with all of that being said, a lot of great stuff coming up. A good morning to Miss Amy and to all of you out there, and we will be back right after this fast break to give you our thoughts on so much going on. Jason Leone, Mike Aresco, Mike Kitts, it's all coming up after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. And I cannot wait to bring you these awesome conversations today here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Happy to be here with you inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. You're also watching here on Facebook Live on facebook.com/livenowdt and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. With all that being stated, we got the man on the show this morning to take our number one and bring us into this beautiful final week of March, and that is Jason Leone of the Oswego State Lakers men's basketball head coach, with plenty on the table to discuss today. So let's bring him in. Jason, how are we doing today?
Hey, Dan, wonderful to be on the show. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. And, Jason, this has been a very unique and trying year for all of us. And as a coach in NCAA Division III, it's been especially trying in that world of not being able to play. Just what you can say about what this past year has done, knowing that D1 decided to go forward and D3, for the most part, did not.
Yeah, I think when the pandemic hit, I think the proper word that I try to use with our players, and even when I'm self-coaching myself through this, Dan, is perspective. It's this really makes you have proper perspective. And as disappointing and at times frustrating as it has been to not be in our normal routines, to not have a season, you read stories in the newspaper, in the media about people that have lost their lives due to this pandemic. And, I think it's important to understand that there's other things that are going on that are much more important than playing our basketball season, and I think it's great that it's proven that it can be done to do it at the higher levels. But as you know, Dan, there's more resources most of the time at the higher level schools. So I'm very thankful that we have an opportunity to be with our players at this time of year, doing some strength and conditioning 4 times a week. So that's great. And we've enjoyed that, just getting together and building our team in preparation for next season. So we're trying to take the positives out of everything day by day as we inch forward towards some level of normalcy here, hopefully by next academic year.
Yeah, and to see this and to kind of go through this, Jason, I mean, like you said, perspective, not being able to play the game you love versus not having a loved one. How have you really tried to focus on that? The difference between I can't coach the game that I love right now, but my wife is here, my kids are here, my family's here, I'm here. To just even in those tough times of frustration, because obviously you have a passion and a love for basketball, to keep that perspective of my loved ones are here, and if I had to choose between them and coaching, I never want to, but they're with me, and so many people in this world lost their lives in this past year.
Yeah, you make a great point. I mean, for me, I try to, as best I can, maintain some positive outlook on things. Not only am I responsible for a family at home, but I have these young men that I'm mentoring and spend a lot of time with. So, I have a responsibility to them as well, to give them a ray of light and things that we can look forward to. And a couple of things of note that I would say to your question is, I do believe the worst of this is behind us. So we lost our season, but every day after that, we're moving towards something positive, and that's getting back to playing and coaching. The second thing is, one of the really nice things that's come about from the pandemic, I'm spending a lot more time at home. I'm not traveling as much, doing my job for the most part remotely. And I've seen my daughter's gymnastics competitions. I'm home for dinner every night, things that during a normal academic year, my family at some level gets put on a little bit of pause from October 15th to, first or second week of March, depending on if we make the tournament. So, being able to spend all this time with my family has been certainly a positive from this. And, and especially I have young kids, so I'm not missing out on some of these lifetime moments that you hear parents talk about all the time.
And that's something too, in the world of a coach, and what you have to do and how much you have to work and kind of, everything that goes into it. I think that, whether it's someone coaching, coming home, I mean, your significant other essentially, has to. It sometimes kind of function like a single parent. What's it been like that you can be there and you can have that connection, have that time, and how much does your wife appreciate in these moments where she kind of had to maybe navigate 5 different things, 10 different things at once, that you guys can actually share the burden right now.
Yeah, it certainly is has been from a convenience standpoint, it's been a positive where you're not running around doing the normal family things where one spouse is running to get this kid and the other one's going in. Like I'm able to be a part of all that, which I've enjoyed, and getting my kids on the bus, get them off the bus, like these little things that sometimes you may take for granted. Being a part of that this year has certainly been a nice change from all this. But make no mistake about it, I'm a coach, I'm an educator, and want to get back to doing the things that we enjoy doing. And quite frankly, my family really has embraced this job as well. You know what I mean? So they're enjoying all this as well. So, coming up to games and meeting all the players every year and having team dinners and things we did before the pandemic that we're hopeful that we can get back to doing hopefully sometime next year.
Coming here from Jason Leone, Oswego State Lakers men's basketball head coach. Jason, bring me into how the dominoes fell at Oswego and how you found out there wasn't going to be a season.
Yeah, so Dan, these decisions are made at a higher level than the coaching level. So it was a combination of conference commissioner, athletic directors from the 10 schools, and then the college presidents. And obviously they also took into account being a public institution. I'm sure there was conversations with the SUNY chancellor, and I'm sure the governor at some level on the outskirts may have been a part of this as well. So this certainly wasn't a thing that happened over a short amount of time or one person making the decision. These were discussions and also relying on the scientists and the people that are the experts in this whole thing, right? So it certainly wasn't a one-person decision. It certainly wasn't an easy decision. It was just something that came about from a group of people making a collective decision that encompassed safety, health, and what was best probably from a financial perspective with what we could do to try to or not try to have our seasons.
When you get this, when the news comes in, and like you said, obviously these decisions are made at a level. And that's you can do everything that you can, but this decision being made at a level beyond you, beyond other coaches and whatnot. Did you feel powerless? Did you feel that? Obviously you can only control yourself, and I've learned that over this past year. You can only control you, your thoughts, your actions, and whatnot, and what you say. So how did you feel in this situation where your players look to you? And you're not making the decision, and it's obviously a very unique situation. Did you feel powerless?
No, I don't. Our players understand the way things go in college athletics. Like I don't make, and they know. We work and represent Oswego State, and I value that. So this is not something where it's about control. It's something about following numbers and research and science, and this wasn't anything that was a power struggle at all. Something where this is not something we're going to be told. It's about control. It's some people that are they have more information, the numbers and research and science than for us to do at this point in time. This doesn't, and then it wasn't anything. And one of the things I tried to explain, and we're going to be told, emphasize throughout the year with our guys, from people that are going into this year have more information than me as a basketball coach. There's going to be some ups and downs with us, and quite frankly, maybe some more downs. And one of the things I tried to explain and pump each other up, continue to reemphasize throughout the year with our guys. Like, listen, going into this year, let's proper outlook perspective that this isn't a matter of ups and downs with us. We're going to get back to playing. It's more of when we're going to get back to playing. We've got to be able to doing the things we love to do. Pump each other up. Just we're going to have. This is going to require some patience. So the proper outlook. Look at everybody in this world. This isn't a matter of to somebody. If we're ever going to get back to playing, it's more of when we're going to control and power. This isn't about that. And just. We're going to have measured and looking around you and seeing what's going on in the world and understand there's a way bigger thing that's going on here than just, sports.
That coming here from Jason Leone, the Oswego State Lakers men's basketball head coach. And Jason, for you, when you see D1 carry on and you see the men's and women's team go, but D3 for the most part, is not a couple games here and there. Dave Paziak out in Vermont, his team got to play 10 games. But, what can you say to that effect when the NCAA, obviously pushes and seeks to make a lot of money, and I'm sure has off of D1, and so you see them say, okay, no matter what it takes, we can't lose the tournament twice. And then at the D2 and D3 level, really not that push. I know you talked about resources before, but what are your thoughts on that? That's D1 got such a, we're doing this no matter what, and D3 didn't get anything that looked anywhere close to that.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that is true. There is a financial piece to this whole thing, but I think it's also important. It makes it, when you say that, makes it look like we're in Division III at a complete disadvantage. I mean, there are very much positives about coaching at this level. For instance, like because our whole thing is not revolving around the NCAA tournament, like, Division III coaches can have a couple years where maybe they go 10 and 15, 12 and 13, and they don't have the alumni and the boosters and the ADs breathing down their neck to get fired when they don't make the tournament. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of positives about coaching at this level too, that involve, more of a life, a life balance type thing. So, when you move up levels, there's resources, there's expectations, there's money, there's TV, all that stuff. And we don't have that. And, at our level for the most part. And, that's why those decisions get made, so I've never been one to focus or dwell on things that we don't have. My mindset as a leader is, okay, I've got a certain amount of resources here. It's my job to figure out a way to make things work. I've just never been one to say, oh, this isn't fair. We don't get this. They do, that type of thing. And the other thing too, Dan, is like, I know we're going to get back to playing. So it's not like, this is a tough deal for everybody, right? We're not playing this year. I could sit there and groan about it and be angry about it, or I can choose to say, okay, let's figure out a way that we can still give these guys a positive experience and give them a positive outlook. So when we do get back to playing, we've kept this thing together in a prideful manner where we're going to get back and we're not going to have this big leap of getting back to normal. Like our guys, we've done these Zoom meetings, we've done as much as we can do legally that the school let us do to make sure that we stay connected. And I think that connection is a critical part to getting back to normal.
And you glass half full, like you said, controlling what you can control. The Division III level, I mean, I went to Marywood University and I understand and I know it and I love it and I fight for it. So kind of a two-parter going off of what you said is what is the beauty of being, NCAA Division III and where do you feel most appreciative of having, the job that you have at Oswego State? And then secondly, outside of those Zoom calls, in general, what have you done to try and keep the spirits up and the morale up at Oswego?
Well, I think the second one first. I mean, the biggest thing with young people is like just being just the communication piece. So being upfront with them and honest. Like I don't try to paint some rosy picture for our guys. I what I'm allowed to tell them and when I'm allowed to tell them that, I tell them. So there's no like, oh, well, try to spin them in a way where they, I try to keep everybody happy. I just don't think that model communication works very well. I don't think by and large, our guys are really bright guys. I don't need to, sell them a bag of goods just to keep them happy. So I think being very, very transparent with them is really important. And we try to do that. And we've tried to be connected with them by being honest with them. And then just being there for them. If there's things they want to do, talk of them just as much of a part of their lives with their academic endeavors and their personal endeavors and staying in touch with them just as much about that as I am to be connected with them. I think so. That's kind of the deal with that. I forget, what was the first question again?
Just what you can say, the beauty is about, NCAA Division III, what you love about it.
The connection with the people. I've got great bosses. I love the colleagues, the coaches, the other sports that I work with. We've all had to pump each other up, right? Like that type of camaraderie is what I really enjoy. It doesn't mean they don't have it at other levels, but just the personal side of my job at this level, I really, really enjoy. And I was a Division III athlete too, Dan. So I kind of have a little bit more of an affinity for understanding the day-to-day things that kids at this level go through, So I think those are some things that have been very valuable to me.
And in having that, in knowing that the season didn't happen, but trying to, like you said, keep the morale up, keep the spirits up and whatnot, what have you learned from your players? How have they motivated you? Because we talk about your motivation of them, but what have they done to just kind of, put a smile on your face and maybe even surprise you in a positive way?
Just check in with me every once in a while. Okay, coach, how you doing? Our alums staying in touch with me, telling me what's going on with their lives. Small victories, right? So when things happen, we share those things, and just the communication piece and the sharing is really important. Has been important, And in terms of me being proud of them, I just can't remember an instance in this past calendar year where I've had anybody complain or let themselves get down and out where they're just like, I'm done with this, So we have had a really, really good group of guys in terms of how they've handled this and how they just, for lack of a better term, have just been, okay, this is what it is. I'm going to put my focus into preparation. So when we are back to doing our normal things that we like to do, I'm ready, So, I've been really pleased with the way our guys look right now with their conditioning and all that. So that's been good too. So.
And for you, what does this team look like as you move forward? What can you tell me about, what your thoughts are from the group that you have? And for the people that don't know or may know, what does it look like as we step into 2021-22?
Honestly, for the first time in my career, I have no idea. So, we haven't been able to do much. So I wish I could give you something, but I wish I could give you more than that, but I don't know. This is going to be a long road back. Think about anything that you do with your job. If you took a year off from it, from the very bare bones of things like, that you have to do, you don't just hop right back in. I think it's going to test all of our patience a little bit, So, but look, here's what I do know. We've got quality people in the program. These guys are working very hard with what they are allowed to do right now, and they have a positive outlook. So I think all that stuff bodes very well for us to get back to where we were from a talent perspective before this whole thing started.
Jason Leone, Oswego State Lakers men's basketball head coach, speaking on life at the Division III level, where this season there wasn't a season for most teams around the country. Did you talk to other coaches around the country, Jason? Did you guys kind of arm in arm try and handle this thing together? Did you reach out to any of the coaches that got to get some games in, or that didn't? How did you navigate?
Of course. I've got a lot of friends within the business, and I've stayed in touch with a lot of people and told me what their things are going on. It was very stressful for those people. Every day you're sitting there and you're looking at just waiting for results on, the testing that these athletes have to go through every day. And you're like, okay, is anybody going to turn out positive today? You have a game the next day. And the coaches that have gone through it and are just completing their seasons in the last couple of weeks here are saying, they're very thankful they got to play, but at the same time, it was like every day was a ball of stress and wound tight that, the unexpected is somebody, we're going to have to go on pause. Is one of these tests going to turn out positive, So that part of it is something that they conveyed to me a little bit.
We see conferences go through, like you said, it's at every level and at the D1 level. Speaking with Mike Kitts, who will be on the show in just a little bit, he was overseeing the MAC, and the MAAC conference in Division I men's basketball had, I believe, what he told me as of the last time, over 140 schedule changes. Just going through that nightmare. You obviously are a big fan of all basketball, and I know that you watch and you pay attention and whatnot. Syracuse had their starts and stops. Gonzaga, the only undefeated team in the nation, had them as well. We saw so many teams go through the starts and the stops and the changes. What can you say watching the schools that did go through it, just what it looked like to see all of these scheduled changes, and maybe you set up with your popcorn on a Monday night to watch a game and finding out, a few hours before it's not going to happen. That was going on all season long.
Yep. There's a sign of the times. And you just, it's just kind of what it was this year, and, it certainly was like nothing that I've ever seen before. And, It's certainly tested everybody's patience, and but it's put people in positions where they really have to be creative and understanding and patient.
How does recruiting go? How has it gone for you through this process?
It's gone well, Dan. It's we have to do a lot more things. Again, I keep mentioning the same word, but we've got to be creative here. We've obviously done a lot more stuff virtually, done a lot more over the phones and with Zoom and Skype and all that stuff. But things are going well. It's relative to what we're allowed to do. We're doing well, So.
And for the tournament that we have seen on the NCAA Division I level, what are your thoughts? I know, at the root of it all, you're a basketball fan, playing the game, coaching the game. What can you tell me about what you've seen? What's been your favorite game or maybe favorite upset? I mean, bring me through the tournament a little bit. And, we have that one shining moment at the end, but what have been some of your clips that you've taken through this tournament?
Just from a learning perspective for me as a coach, the way Gonzaga, the pace they play at, how many good players they have, and how unselfishly they play together has been incredibly impressive to me. Now, being a huge Syracuse fan, I just really enjoyed watching them here the last 2 weeks of the season. And it's a great teaching point for my team, right? Like, they were dead in the water, probably weren't in the tournament 2 weeks before the tournament. And just goes to show you, like, in college basketball, things can go really well and they can go really bad in a short period of time. So watching their run and how Coach Boeheim managed that whole situation just showed me how important as a leader and as a coach poise is, right? And recognizing how long the season actually is. And, you're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you think you are, and then, probably my favorite game that I've watched so far, I really enjoyed watching I just have enjoyed watching the Oral Roberts story. I don't know how you don't watch the tournament, not watch these smaller teams from smaller conferences play so well in advance. It really is kind of a neat thing. Oregon State is a great story too. I actually have had the opportunity during the Final Four when I haven't gone the last couple of years, but to meet the coach there, Wayne Tinkle, and he's just a wonderful guy. And just what I would describe is he's just a regular dude, and to see him, make the run he's making at Oregon State, which is a school that hasn't had a ton of success in the NCAA tournament for quite some time, since probably the days of Gary Payton. It's awesome to see those things too.
Yeah, and you bring up, obviously Syracuse and what they were able to do. I had them advancing to that exact game, losing to that exact team. I had them getting up against Houston and falling to Houston. What can you say about, Syracuse? I agree with Quincy Guerrier when I interviewed him just a couple weeks ago, and he told me they were playing their best basketball right now. And, when they beat North Carolina, beat Clemson at home, beat NC State at the ACC tournament, and lost at the buzzer to Virginia, then they would go on from there to defeat San Diego State, a 6 seed, West Virginia, a 3 seed. And, for 45 years in for Jim Boeheim, another Sweet 16 for this team, the third time they've made the Sweet 16 as a double-digit seed. Just what that does for you, because I know that you're always supporting the hometown Orange.
Yeah, I'm as much of a fan. Syracuse is my favorite team, so it has been growing up. What it means to me is I just think, again, it's just they seem to play well at the right time. For somebody that watches almost every game, to watch every year the team, it morph into something that they weren't when they first started in November. I would question how many fans after they won by one, were fortunate to win against Bryant, thought, oh boy, here we go again. Is this going to be a team that doesn't even make the tournament? And then you look up, 5 months later and they're in the Sweet 16. Most people probably wouldn't have thought that, So watching them grow together and the emergence of Guerrier, Buddy Boeheim, even Joe Girard, where he was much maligned for much of the season, played his best basketball the last month of the season, and that to me is just very impressive. Not just how we can jump on teams and think we have everybody figured out. And then at the end of the year, would anybody have thought Syracuse would have played further than Illinois and some of these great talented teams that were knocked out early? Ohio State, and here you look at Syracuse, and they're still one of the last teams remaining standing. So that to me is very impressive.
From a coaching perspective, what notes did you take away? I mean, where can this team get better moving forward?
Well, I think just listening to Coach, that'd be hard for me to say because I watch the games. I don't watch every day. And, Coach Boeheim has more basketball knowledge in his pinky finger than I have in my body. So, but just listening to what he says, it sounds like they have some things to figure out personnel-wise with who will be back, who won't. So it always starts there with personnel, right? And then I don't think it's any one thing. I think they need to see player development, from what I see. That Jesse Edwards, Robert Braswell, those guys really got better as the year went on. They weren't even in the mix in November or December. And then they were key, critical parts of the team. So those guys developing during the offseason, obviously Kadari Richmond is a great talent. Yeah. Seeing him progress. And then obviously, Buddy probably adding some more elements to his game. Like he has progressed all the way through his career. Same thing with Joe Girard. I think with them, they have some nice pieces coming back. Just seeing that player development will probably be the most critical factor. And I know they've got some, one top 50 recruit coming in next year. I know for sure at least one. Bringing those guys along so they fit in will be also critical. But they'll always be in the mix. As long as coach is coaching the team, they're. You learn over a long period of time. You just never count them out. He just does such a good job. They just get better, it seems like, every year as the year goes on.
That coming from Jason Leone here from men's basketball, the head coach for the Oswego State Lakers. In closing here, right before I let you go, Jason, the Elite Eight, biggest surprise, Gonzaga, USC, Baylor, Arkansas, Oregon State, Houston, Michigan, and UCLA. Biggest surprise for you?
I'm going to kind of digress a little bit. I would just say the Pac-12 as a whole, which is a conference, it seems like in football and basketball every year where people try to put that league down, that they're not, as superior as the other 4 Power 5 conferences. I just think the way they've played in the tournament has been exceptional. It's nice to see for college basketball. You've got a conference that maybe hasn't been there quite as much the last decade, and you're watching the way they're playing, the teams in that league are playing. I think USC is a very underrated team. They've got anybody, because they play late at night. Anybody that hasn't seen the kid Mobley play for them, I just think he's sensational. I watched more college basketball this year than I ever have because we're not playing, and I had the opportunity to watch USC a lot. Their coach is actually a Division III guy. He played at Johns Hopkins and Andy Enfield, and is the all-time leading free throw shooter in the history of Division III basketball. People might not know that, but he's done a great job there at what a lot of people would maybe term a football school, and they got some really good players. I think they're going to give Gonzaga. They play Gonzaga, right?
Yeah.
They're going to give them a little bit of a run. So I think Gonzaga will win, but I think that game, I could see that being closer than what people think.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think USC can obviously push. I had them handling Oregon pretty easily in my prediction here. Not in my original bracket, but going into yesterday, and they did handle that game very well by 14. So, just looking at this, like you had mentioned, the Pac-12, 3 of the 8, almost half of the Elite 8 is coming from the Pac-12, USC, UCLA, and Oregon State. Oregon State winning their first Pac-12 tournament championship ever. And then we have representation of the Big 12 with Baylor, the SEC with Arkansas, the Big 10 with Michigan, Houston coming out of the American, and Gonzaga out of the WCC. UCLA, they had to take overtime against Coach Izzo to win a play-in game as an 11 seed. So they've won more games than anybody else in the Elite 8 because they had to play an extra one. They've won 4 straight games. What do you think about the UCLA story going from a play-in team to the Final 8?
Well, I think that you watch Mick Cronin teams when he was in Cincinnati, very physical, very tough-minded. And, he's gone out to UCLA and imposed his personality on that program in 2 short years. So it's been very impressive. They're very tough-minded. It seems like they have a thing going right now where it's a different guy every night that's stepping up, and they're just finding a way to gel and come together at the right time, and just they're making plays when it counts most. I mean, so much of the tournament is winning these close games, right? It comes down to these paper-thin margins, and they're making the plays right now.
Is your bracket still alive by any stretch of the imagination? Is your champion still out there?
I'm not allowed to do a bracket. So I don't have a bracket. I just watch from game to game, and I just enjoy watching the games.
Yeah, I mean, look at Gonzaga. I mean, do you lean that Gonzaga can do it? I mean, do you think?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
all right.
I'm actually probably more certain about this team than any other team I've probably watched since the Florida back-to-back championships or the Duke back-to-back championships in the early 90s. That this team's right on par with those teams. Pandemic or no pandemic, they're the real deal.
Been a long time coming, and hopefully they can close it out. With that being said, Jason, I appreciate it so much.
Seems like an unbelievable guy, and it's nice to see coaches that are lifers at one place get an opportunity to have such a great year like they're having.
Yeah, Mark Few, a terrific coach on my short list of coaches that I still need to sit down with and speak with. But Jason, as always, I appreciate it. I know you got your guys doing what you can do, which is do a little bit of workouts and whatnot. So get back to it. I appreciate you stepping away here for a little bit, and obviously I'll be talking to you.
I'm watching him run around the track right now as we speak. So I appreciate it. Thanks, Dan.
All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Take care. That coming from Jason Leone here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, knowing that he was out there doing, training what he can, watching the guys run around the track for a little bit, and the fact that he came on to the show and gave us some time here really does mean a lot to me, because time is precious, and they haven't had a lot of time together as a team. So I definitely appreciate everything that Jason does, including the time that he took today, knowing that the guys are working out here this morning. So with that being said, we'll take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, we'll get you set and ready by giving you a couple notes before Mike Aresco of the American Athletic Conference, the commissioner, joins us to speak on Houston and Memphis. Houston advancing to the Elite Eight of the NCAA Division I men's basketball tournament, and Memphis winning over the weekend the entire NIT. So two teams here in the American making it very, very far. Memphis going all the way. Houston still alive. So we'll talk about all of that coming up in just a few minutes here where Sports Meets Life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Inside of these Cafe Kubal studios.
Avicoli's Restaurant, located right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road, is proud to be your local neighbor, growing with you for over 20 years. We're open 7 days a week for lunch, dinner, and drinks. For takeout, delivery, or catering, call us at 315-622-5100. When you order online and use our promo code AVS10, you will save 10% on your online purchase at myavicolis.com. And make sure to join us monthly for our live on-site broadcasts centered around Liverpool athletics. Avicoli's, your local, trusted neighbor right at the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road.
Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com. CaffeCoubal.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
What's up, my good people? Back here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Coubal studios. Hope you're having yourselves a tremendous start to your week. If you're not, well, guess what? Take a little break and go and get yourself your chai, your any type of tea, your chai, your coffee, whatever. Go fill your cup at Cafe Coubal and go get some of their awesome breakfast as well as their sandwiches and everything that they have to offer. The upstate sandwich is my favorite for sure over at Cafe Coubal, available at all their locations. And, of course, their desserts are second to none. They're so good. So their chocolatey chocolate bread, as well as their chocolate banana bread and their cookies and everything that they have. So very good. So head off to Cafe Coubal today. You can get your cold brew. You can get something hot, whatever you need. I know it snowed overnight, little sprinkle of snow. So go warm yourself up at Cafe Coubal today. Their location's 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, as well as 208 North Townsend Street, all in Syracuse, and their Manlius location on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York. So head off there today. We will be there tomorrow. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora will be live for the entire broadcast tomorrow morning, and we're going to be on site, on location tomorrow morning, which I'm ecstatic about, at 401 South Salina Street. We'll be at that location in downtown Syracuse, doing our first ever live broadcast from that location, and we're going to be there with Deuce, with Drew, with Nassim, Devin, Cameron, Daniel, James, and also Coach Giannuzzi and head coach Dave Klein, and of course my dude Max White is going to be there. So a jam-packed show we'll have at Cafe Coubal on site, on location at 401 South Salina Street tomorrow, which is Tuesday, March 30th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We will be on location with the CNS football team featuring Max, Deuce, Drew, Nassim, Devin, Cameron, Daniel, James, head coach Dave Klein, and hopefully we'll have assistant coach Giannuzzi as well, all joining the broadcast. So you don't want to miss that. We're going to make history, and we're going to have to make some space for ourselves, making history and making some space there at Cafe Coubal on 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, downtown Syracuse. So come out and see us there. Houston's road to the Elite Eight came through beating Cleveland State in the round of 64, 87-56 as the number 2 seed, and then going on to barely beat Rutgers in a comeback game, 63-60, before taking care of Syracuse over the weekend, 62-46, which gives them a matchup with Oregon State, and that game is tonight at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Time, as they are part of the Elite Eight and the one representative of the American Athletic Conference in the Elite Eight for Division I men's basketball. On the NIT side of things, Memphis ran through this tournament. Memphis, being a number 1 seed, defeated Dayton 71-60. They went on to defeat number 2 seeded Boise State in their bracket 59-56. Then they took down Colorado State's 90-67 to face Mississippi State in the championship game in an abridged version of the NIT. Fewer teams here this time around. There's only 16 teams in this year's NIT, so 4 in each of the 4 brackets. And Memphis went on to face Mississippi State in the championship and won that in Frisco, Texas, 77-64, which is very fitting because the American Athletic Conference just moved their headquarters to the state of Texas. Then Memphis, a representative of the American, wins the NIT championship in the state of Texas. So what a homecoming for the American Athletic Conference, as they now call their headquarters of their home. Their new home is the great state of Texas. So cool to be coming in and have that to be part of their first year in Texas. So a big shout out to Memphis for making that happen, and a beautiful thing. So we're going to talk about that and so much more right after this fast break with Mike Aresco on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, and we thank you so much for being a part of the show. So we will be back in just a moment here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora after this fast break inside of the Cafe Coubal studios with the Commissioner of the American, Mike Aresco. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand butter chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Happy to be here with you every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where sports meets that thing called life. And, of course, happy to be here with you on as well as on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt and on wakeupcalldt.com. You can also find us here on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and on facebook.com/live-now. DT. So in just a minute, we'll be joined by Mike Aresco, the Commissioner of the American Athletic Conference. He'll be here to talk with us on Houston as well as on Memphis. Houston helping themselves forward to the Elite Eight in the Men's Division I tournament, playing up against Syracuse. So I actually have been able to see Houston and be on those calls with Calvin Sampson, the head coach, after the game, and Dejan Jaru. I got to speak with him as well during the American Athletic Conference tournament to speak with me on who Houston is as a basketball team. So I shared that over the weekend, and obviously I can share that again. So some good stuff that I had with Houston, and obviously covering the American involves Houston, and spent a little more time with Houston basketball here toward the postseason. And so, knew some things about them going into this game with Syracuse, and Mike Aresco will be speaking on them, as well as on Memphis, who I also got to spend some time with interviewing, and got to do some cool stuff with them during the American Athletic Conference tournament as well, and I'll have the opportunity to share that with you too. So very, very much looking forward to all of that here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, and definitely excited to have this conversation with Mike Aresco, knowing that Memphis and Houston have done so well to represent the conference, and with Houston still alive in the Elite Eight and Memphis having won the NIT. So a lot of great stuff coming up here with Mike Aresco of the American Athletic Conference. And without further ado, let's bring him into the show. Mike, how are we doing today?
Good morning, Dan. How are you? Hope all's well. And again, it is a good time for us right now, and keep our fingers crossed. But thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's, the adversity that we go through in life, we always wonder, sometimes what's on the other side of that adversity. Will we ever get past it? And the adversity that you have had as a conference, building out of the ashes of realignment back in like 2012-13 area, building out of that, and then creating the American, creating this new conference, this new logo, this new name and branding and everything you had to do. And then amidst a pandemic, moving your headquarters from Rhode Island to Texas, all the way to come to this point where the NIT plays their championship in the state of Texas. And within a year of you moving there, just a few months of you moving there, you get to hoist a trophy right there in the state where the American is now calling their headquarters. So I would venture to say that the adversity is all well worth it when you get to see a trophy raised for the American in the just a couple months into actually being in the state of Texas.
Oh, I don't think there's any question about that, Dan. It's gratifying. But remember, this has been a tough year for everyone, but we've done very well athletically. We had Cincinnati just ready to win the Peach Bowl, and it slipped away at the end, but they had a great season and really should have, in my view, been in the playoff. We had some very good football teams. Tulsa was a worthy opponent in the championship game. And now in basketball, we had a tough season. COVID issues arose, as they did for everyone. We had to scramble to finish. But we gave our student athletes a chance to play, and that was something they desperately wanted. And I think we did it in the safest way we could have done it. And now we were an underrated league all year, but we didn't have a great season. No, I'm not arguing that we did. Some of our teams didn't have the kind of seasons they're used to, and they didn't have a chance to play as many of the really good non-conference games that you need to play, and that really hurt a team like Memphis, which didn't hit its stride until later. But we knew that we had a good solid conference. When you have teams like Wichita State and SMU and Memphis, as well as Houston, and some teams at the lower tier of our league, Dan, that are actually pretty good teams now. I wouldn't argue that they're tournament teams by any means, but they're getting there. And we didn't have a net, I think, above 175. And that can't be said of some conferences. There were some P5 conferences that did not have that did have teams with higher nets than that. So the balance in our conference was better than it's been. And I'm not surprised to see Houston doing what it's doing. It's a terrific team. Been telling everybody how good they are, what great defense they play all season long. Memphis, though, came on really strong and I think would have been a very worthy NCAA tournament team and probably they play all season long. Memphis, though, came on, though. But winning the NIT is very gratifying for Penny Hardaway and his team. And I congratulate him because I think it's the start of something bigger. And you're right, it was played in Texas this year, sort of a coincidence. Texas is one of those states that's been a little friendlier in terms of the reopening. And that, could be one reason why, obviously the women's tournament is in San Antonio. I mean, I think Texas has been very welcoming and they're trying to put in all the proper protocols. So it just happened to be, in our backyard. But, it's been a long road for this conference. A lot of success along the way, Dan, as you know. A lot of big wins in football and a lot of heartbreak in basketball with some very, very good teams. I mean, I hope Houston can make the Final Four. I think, they lost that heartbreaker to Michigan a few years ago. They lost the heartbreaker to Kentucky a few years ago. UCF had Duke on the ropes a few years ago. Cincinnati under Mick had a lot of, tough, close games in the tournament. And it's also great to see Mick Cronin do well and get to the Elite Eight. Mick spent a long time in our league, and he was a good friend and a good supporter of the league. And so this is where we are now, and now we just have to keep building on it, as you mentioned. Built the foundation. Now we have to just keep keep succeeding.
Hey, and you talk about the starts and stops, and everything some of these teams had to go through. Teams spending a month away from basketball inside of your conference, and how did you navigate that as the commissioner? Because I've spoken with people that have all different kind of viewpoints: players, coaches, commissioner, to coordinators of officiating, where they've all had this unique angle on it, but it's all the fact of canceling games, postponing games, moving stuff around, trying to get stuff in. Houston, who is in the Elite Eight, they had 3 games in a row either canceled or postponed. Then they had another one postponed later on in the season. Then they had a back-to-back postpone and cancellation. So, they've had to deal with it, and here they are in the Elite Eight. Gonzaga, who's the only undefeated team in NCAA Division I men's basketball, they had to they had to go through the starts and stops. The team that Houston played, Syracuse, had a couple times where they had to start and stop and went through Corona on the team. So just what you can say as a commissioner that you've seen from this, the resiliency of these student athletes and these coaches, and the fact that your conference has had to be more resilient at times, it feels, than most because of the length of time in between, some games for some of these teams, and the fact that, even a team like Houston, who's still alive, has had 3 different situations this season where they had to halt for a second and then go again.
Yeah, I think there's no question, Dan, that resilience is the right word to use. You just had to be to really, draw on your inner resources and just get through it, and be able to still play at a high level when you came back from the pauses. And that was tough on teams. You saw some teams come back from long layoffs and be very rusty. It's not an easy thing to do. I think in our league, we got hit a little harder by COVID toward the end than other leagues. We did pretty well during most of the season. We were about in the range of everyone else. And then at the end, we had some programs, that had to pause, SMU toward the end and a few others. And it really did affect our scheduling. It caused a lot of disruption. We had to scramble and we had some protocols that we had put in place at the start of the year, knowing that there would be disruption. It was impossible to think there wouldn't be. And so consequently, we had a protocol about where games would be played if they were lost and which games would be made up. And we ultimately at the end managed to get Wichita a key game on the final weekend, which helped them, get in the tournament. We wish we could have done a little more, but we couldn't put people at a really tough competitive disadvantage, which we would have been doing in certain instances. So without getting into the weeds of all the rescheduling, it was tough on the schools because they weren't sure from week to week toward the end exactly, whom they were playing and whom they were preparing for. But also they, when you have a pause like that, it's, you have to, again, as I said, draw on your resources and make sure that you can come out of it the right way. And I think that's a tribute to the coaches, obviously a tribute to the players. And everybody around the country had to do it. And you saw some schools do it better than others. We never wanted to make COVID a pejorative thing. It can happen to anybody, and it can happen at any time. You think you're okay, and then wham, you've got positives. It's just such a transmissible disease, as we all know. And so consequently, it's really a question of, okay, you just have to handle it. And, you do the best you can. Now, this is an unusual year. You see a lot of blue blood programs that didn't do as well. And I'm not sure why. No one really knows why. It's not necessarily that they didn't handle this well. It's a question of there could have been a lot of reasons they could have been hit harder than others. And, it's just been an unusual year. You see it in the NCAA tournament with more upsets than probably have ever happened before. So, but, let's hope. It's been a national tragedy, Dan, and let's hope that we get beyond it. Sports is, it's important to our country. It's important to everybody, but it's still a relatively small part of the larger story. Yeah. But we're all hoping that we can get through this and that by next year we're not going to be dealing with this, because right now we are. And the other thing I should say is our medical advisory group was critical to the overall effort. And we've got a great group of doctors and some trainers, medical personnel who have met literally weekly and often twice a week for a year. I don't know how many meetings we've had, literally, over 100 easily. And they've set the parameters. They've had to make a lot of tough calls, tough decisions. But without their expertise, without their input, Dr. Greg Stewart of Tulane chairs it, and he's done a remarkable job. We wouldn't have been able to play. And Scott Draper from our office and Brian Thornton, of course, handles our basketball. Brian's relatively new to the conference, but he's been a great hire. He's done a terrific job handling men's and women's basketball. Scott Draper was doing our testing in football, and we had him transition over and arrange the testing in basketball. And we did almost 2,100 tests at our men's and women's basketball tournaments, and no positives. That was a tribute to the players, to the coaches, to the arrangements that our staff made in Fort Worth, and also, again, the great work that Scott and Brian did in arranging all the testing and doing it as smoothly as possible. So that's a big part of this too. Without that, we could not have had a season without question.
Yeah, and that's something that's, and I'm happy that you thank the medical advisory group, because people hear about it, but all they care about is that the game's being played. What can you say about the tireless effort of the medical advisory group, and just how you've navigated through everything with them? Because the decisions that they're making, I mean, they're putting other people's lives in their hands, and I think that, there's not enough of a spotlight on these people that are really trying to trust the science, do the work, and do everything they can do to keep these young men and women healthy, as well as the coaching staffs and whatnot. But there's not a lot of focus on that in the media. As long as the game gets played, it's fine. But there needs to be some, positive spotlight on the medical advisory group as well.
Well, there's no question about that, Dan. They were critical to the effort, and you're right. They bore an awesome responsibility, and they bore it well. I realized how complex all this is in literally being on virtually every call since April or May, whenever we set up the group, and they always let me have input every single week based on what I was hearing from them. But I'm not the doctor, and we basically gave them a large amount of authority to tell us what should happen in particular cases. And testing is not a simple thing. The whole antigen PCR, the false positives, false negatives, what constitutes this or that. And so it was a very, very very challenging set of decisions they had to make weekly. And if you did have a positive, there was always that question: is this? Are you on the verge of an outbreak? Even though you might have some negative tests, they had to weigh that too. And they felt, though, from the very beginning, and I was very, very, very proud of this group, because I think they took a common sense, level-headed, but safety-first approach. We postponed some games, and some games ultimately had to be canceled out of an abundance of caution. That's the term, obviously, that's used. But in this case, it really was accurate. There were games that probably could have been played, but we just felt that, we should err on the side of caution. The medical group always did. And the other thing, they had to do, at the beginning, as we looked like football wasn't going to be played. There's this whole myocarditis issue. Well, they've been tracking on that for months, and we brought in a nationally renowned cardiologist to talk to us. We talked to others. We had relationships with some of the doctors from, the P5 group. We should have been in that room talking to them too, because I think we could have made a huge contribution to their efforts. But the point is, in the end, we were able to play, and our medical group felt strongly that there was no medical reason not to play, and that carried over to basketball. And the other thing that they felt strongly about is that we would ultimately, our student athletes would be better off in the protocols that we had established than out, because they could easily pick up the disease, the virus, outside. And because so many younger people have asymptomatic cases, they might not have known it. They might have had underlying conditions later that wouldn't have been detected. They might have been spreading it to friends, family, older people without even knowing it. Whereas this way, they were in strict protocols, being tested 3 times a week. And in basketball, you got toward the tournaments pretty much every day. Yeah. And so consequently, you really had a situation where they got the best care, the best treatment. They got cardiac workups after every case of COVID. So again, we tried to do everything we can to make it safe. They didn't find any evidence of transmission on the field. They're probably still studying basketball, hoping that again, the evidence wasn't clear, but it seemed like if there'd been evidence, transition on the court, we would have had a much worse situation. But usually the cases came from visits with family, friends, things that you do sometimes just normally. I think everybody really worked hard. I don't think, our student athletes, they took it very seriously. They wanted to play. But again, it is so easy to acquire, unfortunately, to contract this virus that it was gonna cause some disruption without question. But kudos to the medical group. It's not over yet, by the way. We've got Olympic sports. We're in the middle of those. We've got strict testing requirements for those sports too. Some involve less contact, so the testing's a little different with some of those sports. But we've got to get through the season. We've got baseball coming up. College World Series will wrap everything up in June. And then, now you've got football starting again, spring football, and you've already had a couple of programs pause. This virus, unfortunately, isn't going away. I hope the vaccines roll out quickly. Obviously, we're all hoping for that. But, right now, we're still in the same situation. We're going to keep our medical group together. They're going to continue to meet. And let's hope that next year is a different situation, but right now we're going to have to be very vigilant.
Yeah, speaking here with the commissioner of the American Athletic Conference, Mike Aresco, discussing what's going on in this very interesting year. SMU, who I had the opportunity to speak with during the conference tournament, they have had numerous games this season, hit arguably harder than anybody as far as volume. I had 4 games that were canceled or postponed before the end of the season, where 7 of their last 9 games were canceled or postponed. What can you say about SMU's push at the end of all this? I mean, they even pushed Cincinnati and did what they could do toward the end of the season here, and then went into the postseason and fought up against Boise State inside of the NIT, were able to make it there. What was your overall take on a team like SMU that really just, couldn't play basketball? Whenever they tried to come back, something would happen. And the amount of adversity that they went through as a team was undeniable, yet they kept their spirits up. The players and head coach, the people that I got to talk to were not making excuses, but they definitely went through a lot.
They really did, more than any of our teams. And we had some teams that definitely had to pause and definitely had issues. But no, I was proud of what they did. And Tim Jankovich, their coach, was out for a long time. From sometime in early mid-January through into February, he couldn't coach. So they were relying on an excellent coaching staff without Tim. And they played really well in the NIT. As you know, they could easily have won that game. They played well in our tournament, but they were rusty. You could see it. And I just, they did the best they could. They wanted to play, and they didn't say, okay, we're calling it a day. We're not going to go to the tournament. They went, they competed. They went to the NIT, which I think was, again, another show that they were determined to play as much as they could, knowing that they'd lost so much. And because of their situation, we lost a lot of other games. There were some other teams too that, for instance, Wichita did not have any, for the most part, COVID problems of their own, almost none. And yet they missed at 1.9 games that were the result of others having COVID pauses. And that's tough on a team too, even though obviously, fortunately, they were not, affected by it. Houston in football, you may recall, they had, I think, 5 or 6 false starts at the start of the football season. They were ready to play Baylor and couldn't play. They were ready to play North Texas and couldn't play. And none of it had to do with anything in the Houston program. Then eventually, they had some cases toward the end. So they had a season that was somewhat truncated. And it's the same with other teams. So it's really affected everyone. But for whatever reason, SMU got hit really hard. And the irony is SMU, through almost the entire football season, had an sterling record in terms of they took every precaution you could possibly take. They were one of the models in terms of doing things the right way. And again, it's not a pejorative thing, because no matter what you do, you can have cases. But they did an exceptional job. And then all of a sudden, toward the end of the football season, it hit them hard. And as you know, they weren't able to compete in a bowl game, and then it carried over to basketball. Now, you could argue that in certain cases, certain campuses are more urban than others. That might, have an impact on this. You just don't know. Where there's more people around. There's more chances to contract it. You've got, again, there might be cases where there's just more community spread in certain areas than others. That's sometimes just the luck of the draw. You just don't know, and so you just have to deal with it as it comes. This was a tough year, but I'm just happy that we were able to play. And when you see the joy that the kids have gotten out of playing, especially in this case Houston, and now Memphis winning the NIT, which they view as a huge stepping stone to what they think will be greater things. It's gives you a feeling that I think ultimately we did the right thing. Give you one little insight in terms of Houston's got a great great culture, and often winning teams do, as you know. And toward the at the end of our tournament, toward the end of their game with Cincinnati, and that was not a close game, as you know. And so they, Kelvin put in a lot of his subs, and one of the kids who obviously doesn't play much at all hit a basket and toward the end. And I was standing with Chris Pesman, the AD at Houston, near the bench at that point, and because we all got tested, every day, so we were able to be down there. And he, the kids on the Houston bench just went crazy. They were just so happy for the kid who made the basket. I mean, it was so spontaneous and so real. It really was very gratifying to see. I mean, they just couldn't have been happier for this kid who never gets to play, and there he makes a basket. Big thrill for him in our tournament. And I said to Chris, great. These kids really just seem to be, they really like each other. Great group. Because they have a tremendous camaraderie, and it's a credit to the kind of kids that Kelvin recruits. He's built a really sustainable, terrific program there. He has everything going for him, and I think the league is going to be obviously better for it. I think when you have a team like that, everybody strives to be good, and I think that's happening in our league. But it's just great to see. These are still young people, and they wanted to play. They can show that great enthusiasm, and under really, really difficult circumstances, being tested literally dozens and dozens of times all year, and the tension that goes with those tests. I mean, I've been tested a lot going into these arenas, and you feel it even in that situation, because you don't know, you never know. You don't think you've got it, but you never know. And I can imagine how these kids had to deal with it all year. It's been very tough, but they did it, and tip my hat to them.
Yeah, and Mike, Mike Aresco, the American Athletic Conference Commissioner, here with us this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Everything that these kids had to give up, people don't really think about this, but, I said it over the weekend, I said for them to entertain you, they have to, go through testing, like you said, over and over and over again, can't see their families, can't go home for the holidays, can't do this, can't do that. This has really been a giant sacrifice of sitting in a room by yourself or sitting with your roommate or just being with your team. They're essentially, in order to be a student athlete right now in collegiate athletics, you can't really have a social life. You can't have the normal college experience. You're not supposed to go here. You're not supposed to go there. You're not even supposed to go pick your food up and hang out in a restaurant. So just what you could say as the commissioner of these, so many of these student athletes across the country that have given up so much just so, fans will have something to watch on a Monday or a Saturday or whatever it may be.
Well, they have given up a lot, and it's a sacrifice they've been willing to make because they really wanted to play. And I think that's the point that really has to be emphasized, Dan. We were very, very considerate of anyone who wanted to opt out, who didn't want to play. And there were football and basketball players who ultimately decided to opt out for various reasons because of, COVID-related reasons. And we fully understood, and we were very encouraging. We said, look, no penalties. We understand completely. As you know, they're in the group that obviously gets to come back if they want. And we just felt this had to be voluntary. Nobody was going to be, not only not forced, but not even compelled or made chained into playing. The feeling was that this is it's a personal decision. The COVID thing is real, it's serious, and you have to take it seriously. And if anybody wanted to opt out, they could. So what you had is, whoever was playing wanted to play. And what irritates me sometimes is when I read some of the things these writers write, they act as though this is kind of indentured servitude. They act like that these kids have no choice, that we're somehow rounding up a group of kids and having them play just so that, everybody can make a lot of money and whatever. And that's just nonsense. The kids want to play, and they come to our schools voluntarily because they want to play. And they get, obviously a full scholarship, and they get a great situation, and they get cost of attendance. They get all sorts of things, and they get to play in these beautiful arenas in front of a lot of people, and they get to build up a tremendous, community and team relationship. And it's something they want to do. It's something that no one's forcing them to do it. And, they have options. They can go to I don't want to get into a long debate about that, but they can go to the G League, or they can go overseas. They can play. Now there are even football leagues where they can play. There are things they can do if they don't want to go to college. But if they want to go, they get what can be priceless if you do your studies and you get a good education. That's a priceless thing, and you don't pay a dime. And your fellow students, as you know, many of them are saddled with a lot of debt to go to these outstanding schools. But I think the COVID thing just showed that the kids wanted to play. When they couldn't play in certain conferences, they started movements. We want to play movements and that sort of thing. And you saw other conferences ultimately decide that it was ultimately safe to play. But that's, I think, the key thing. We gave them an opportunity that they wanted, and those who didn't feel comfortable didn't have to play, and were made to feel very comfortable by everyone. They were not outcasts in any way just because they didn't want to play. It was totally the opposite. Everybody understood that this was a personal and a tough decision, and that you had to support it. Because again, you're dealing with something that we had never dealt with before, and I think that's really, and I'm pleased that all the schools acted that way. Like everybody I dealt with in our conference, and I think around the country, if somebody opted out, they got complete support. I think that was really critical.
Yeah, and like you said, players want to play, and they've made that clear. The ones that I've been around, they made it clear they wanted to be out there. And yeah, it wasn't the most desirable of circumstances, but they wanted to get out there and play. For you to see Houston, and before I let you go, to look at Houston and to look at Memphis, Houston still alive in the Elite Eight, Memphis having won the NIT, and I always think the winner of the NIT, and arguably, maybe the last couple of teams that are there in it, make a case back to the committee of you should have brought us in. So when you look at what Penny's doing at Memphis, was it any surprise to you that they won the NIT, and what can you say about the run there? And then secondly, with Calvin Sampson and the crew at Houston, just what they've been able to do. Mike, we're not talking about a Houston team that's okay. We're talking about a Houston team that went into the NCAA tournament leading the nation in rebounds statistically, averaging over 40 rebounds a game, and they made Syracuse pay for the lack of getting after the boards, because that's how they won the game. It wasn't spectacular shooting. It was second chance opportunities and just being very, very strong around the glass and making good decisions. That was not a high-scoring game. It wasn't a NBA Jam type of feel to it. It was a bunch of people doing fundamental basketball very, very well. So what can you say about Memphis's run and what it says about that team this year? And then secondly, what Houston has been able to do on the court to the Elite Eight and be leading the nation in rebounding. North Carolina was second. Houston was first going into the tournament. And I feel like that needs to be pounded home because Calvin Sampson has definitely spoken about that.
Oh, there's no question about it. And, before I mention that, Dan, just, there was a mental health aspect to playing this year. And, some of the cardiologists we talked to pointed that out. They sometimes have the unfortunate task of telling young people that because of a certain kind of heart condition, they can't play anymore. And they understand how devastating it is for student athletes who really want to play, and their whole life has been, tailored to it, keyed to it, aiming, they have certain goals athletically, and they can't play. It's devastating. And if our student athletes had not been able to play, there may have been, mental health issues to the extent that they're, depression, that kind of thing. And you don't know. But the point is, it could have been an issue, and it was pointed out, and we certainly understood it. If you can play safely, that preserves the, obviously the ability for these kids, to play and to live out their dreams. And if they can't, it really has an impact on them. And so consequently, in that sense, it was, there were some real downsides to not playing. And in terms of Memphis and Houston, Memphis is an unusual team because they didn't get off to a great start, and they were inconsistent, and they had difficulty, shooting free throws at times, and they didn't score enough. But they played tenacious defense, and they were well coached by Penny, and they finally hit their stride. But they didn't have the kind of tournament, the resume that would normally get you into the tournament. The so-called quad one wins. They didn't really have those, and we weren't able. At the very end, we tried to set up, a game or two with them that would have helped them in the but would have in some ways disadvantaged them, competitively. So they didn't have the opportunities, but they really played well down the stretch. And I thought they'd made a good case to be a tournament team and a team that could go deeply. But if you look at just the so-called metrics, use that term, they didn't quite qualify. And I think COVID certainly affected everybody's ability to play non-conference games and to have the kind of season they would have had normally. And I don't know Memphis was a team that came on late. And I happen to think that you shouldn't look at the whole season equally. I know that's something the committee does, and I just feel that teams should improve as the season goes on. Teams that improve, I think, deserve more consideration than teams that go, frankly, the other direction. They may win a game in November or December and then not do well. But that's not the way it's viewed. So you look at the whole season, and unfortunately Memphis didn't quite have the resume, but we knew how good they were. And look, when you play Houston as well as they did the last two games, if they'd won one of those, maybe that would have given them the credential, so to speak, the resume builder that they needed to get in the tournament. But they lost a game on a shot from half court by Tremont Mark, who's going to be, I think, one of the next great Houston players. He banked in an incredible shot to obviously break the hearts of the Memphis kids. And then they came back in the tournament and played a great game. One of their problems was free throw shooting. It did plague them during the year. It didn't so much in the NIT, thank goodness. But they lost that game by 2 points, a real heartbreaker, and they were leading down the stretch. Great game. A lot of people argue that it was the best tournament game played in the country this year. It was just a tremendous game, really hard fought. So we knew that going into the NIT, they wanted to play it, that they'd probably be, a formidable team, and sure enough, they won it. And I think the future is bright for them. But it was just an unusual year, and that's why ultimately, they weren't in the tournament. Now, Houston, again, I think Houston, the committee did respect Houston. They made them a number 2 seed. And I think Houston could easily have been a number 1 seed. They had that loss to East Carolina. But, teams do have losses once in a while like that to a team like that. And Jaden Gardner's a great player, and East Carolina's got a great coach. And Joe Dooley, and once in a while, you lose a game like that. They lost another really tough game at Wichita, which turned out, to be one of our better teams down the stretch. Ended up winning our regular season title. So Houston really had a tremendous year. The committee did respect them. I think that the writers nationally, I think the media may have overlooked them a bit. And I think, again, some of it is our league just doesn't get yet the respect it deserves. It gets more. And we've had multiple. We're a power 7, as they say. There's no question about that when you have the pedigree of our league with teams like Wichita and Houston and Memphis and Cincinnati and SMU and Temple's long great history in basketball, and with Johnny Dawkins at UCF and the great programs we have around the league. We've had a few programs that have had some issues recently, and they're dealing with them. But the point is, for the most part, it's a very strong league. It just isn't. We didn't have the kind of season that draws attention. And so, therefore, I think maybe some people didn't realize quite how good Houston is. They play incredibly tenacious defense, and you saw how well they did. Syracuse is a really good team that, I know they struggled to get in the tournament, but they came on at the end. Jim Boeheim said that this Houston team played the best defense of any team they faced all year. And incidentally, Syracuse plays really good defense. I was extremely impressed, not only with their, you always know that their vaunted zone is tough to deal with. It's always tough to play against, but I just was impressed with how they guarded and how tough they were and how well Houston handled that. Houston's got good ball handlers. They're a veteran team. You had to admire Dejan Giroux and the way he played injured. It was absolutely inspirational, and that's what college sports often is about. You've got a great player in Quentin Grimes, the transfer from Houston, and when he's hitting, and he hits key, timely shots. You saw him, hit his elbow in the Rutgers game and looked like he was hurting. He missed a couple of free throws as a result. And then he comes right back and hits a huge three that helps them go on to win a game. And you always have games like that in the tournament, Dan, where you're struggling. No team that wins this thing or gets to the Final Four hasn't had some challenges along the way and some near-death experiences. You just survive and advance. But in Houston's case, they also are just extremely well coached. I always have great confidence that Kelvin will have them ready. They're veterans. They play hard. Kelvin doesn't tolerate not playing hard. And so consequently, you're going to get, 40 minutes of really hard play. Talented group. Again, great defense. If they get the timely shots, if they make their free throws, I think they've got a good chance to go to the Final Four. They'll be playing a good Oregon State team. It's got a lot of talent. And it's another deceptive situation because my understanding is they had some COVID issues during the year that affected them. And we know how disruptive that can be. So it meant that they didn't have the kind of regular season that they could have had. And they obviously had to, win a tournament against, some strong teams. You've got, 3 Pac-12 teams in the Elite Eight, and that just shows you, a few years ago, the Pac-12 was in danger of being a one-bid league. Yeah. And this year we struggled, and you can come back very quickly. We had 4 teams in not too long ago. We've had 4 teams in on a number of occasions, but, several occasions anyway. But this year we struggled, and we only had 2. We probably could have had another, maybe even 2 more, but we didn't. And we know we have to get better, and I think we will. But Houston has just been, a beacon the whole year. They've been terrific. They've done everything they've been asked to do. And now we'll see. When you get to this point, anything can happen. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I think they'll play well. I think they've got a shot. And I think they have a legitimate shot to win it all. I saw the teams play yesterday. I saw the teams play the other day. There's some good teams out there. But Houston's a unique team. And some media caught onto it and said, this is a really tough team to play. They play great defense. They switch off on you. They know how to guard. Dejan Giroux is a tremendous, defensive player as well as a leader. And they're just really tough, And so who knows? We'll see how far they can go. But we're proud of them. We're proud of what Kelvin's done there. We're proud of what the administration has done at Houston. Renu Couture, the president, Tillman Fertitta has. The Fertitta Center is an absolutely beautiful facility. Chris Besman does a great job as their AD, and they've done. They're good in a lot of sports, and they've the facility upgrades over the years. The beautiful football stadium, the Fertitta Center in basketball, which is just it's kind of like a mini Cameron. It's just a beautiful place, and I think it's really helped. And Kelvin, he has what he needs there now because he's always been a great coach, and took a program that was, had great history, great tradition, but it'd been a long time, and now they're back, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. When I filled out my bracket, before I even put the pen to the paper finding out what the seeding was going to be, I had Houston as a 2, and I believe that Houston and Gonzaga would meet in the championship, and it's still alive. Hopefully it'll continue to be, and we'll see what happens as we get set for the rest of the NCAA tournament. And Wichita State, obviously made it as a play-in game as an 11 seed in a heartbreaker buzzer that just went off the front end of the rim, 53-52 against Drake. So, Mike, as always, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. I look forward to having you back on here soon. But thank you for the work you're doing. Please thank the medical advisory group on my behalf for what they've done for these student athletes. And, congratulations to Calvin Sampson and Penny Hardaway and all the coaches that navigated through this, win, lose, or draw. And there's obviously more life for Houston, hopefully. And Memphis has hoisted a trophy. So a nice, kind of positives here, silver lining through all the adversity we've been through. And the fact, once again, to bring it full circle, that as you call Texas home now for the American Athletic Conference headquarters, to see Memphis come to Texas and hoist up a trophy is a nice little welcome party addition there. So, as always, I appreciate your time, appreciate what you've done, and obviously I appreciate the work of this conference and the fact that these coaches and these players who I've gotten to talk to here in these last couple weeks have really navigated through a very, very difficult time, and they've done it together, and I really do appreciate and respect that. And, for the coaches and the players, there's a lot to be proud of, and hopefully they can have a breath of fresh air and get to see family soon and do the things that they care about as well.
I would, again, I'd say amen to all of that, Dan. I really think those are all, really key points. And thanks for recognizing, our medical group. They've just done a terrific job. And also Memphis winning the NIT. David Rudd, he's our board chair at our conference. Done a great job with Memphis in all respects, and their athletic programs are, what they've done in footballs, and now building basketball. Laird Beach, signed on a few years ago, as a great AD. So they've built a great program. Thanks for recognizing them, and again, thanks for recognizing the student athletes for what they've done. It's been a tough year. Thanks again for having me, and we'll see what happens. Should be a really exciting remainder of the season, next week or so, and. Thanks again. Appreciate all the time that you devote and the knowledge you have of our league and the support you've given our league over the years. Much appreciated, and always great to be with you, and I look forward to doing it again at some point. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you. That coming from Mike Aresco one more time here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. We'll take a quick step aside here for a fast break. And when we come back inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, Wake Up Call will bring you our third guest of the day, Mr. Mike Kitts, speaking on the officiating of the tournament up to this point, right after this.
Cafe Cabal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafecubal.com. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpazsnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you make your way to the Millhouse Market every Tuesday through Sunday. They are closed on Mondays, and so on Tuesday through Sunday, head out their way. Tuesday they are open, Tuesday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and on Sundays they are open 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., and on Sundays they have serving breakfast all day, so for brunch, on Sunday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. On the weekends, their bistro indoor restaurant is open throughout the week, Tuesday through Sunday. You can head into their general store with local products from local companies. And, of course, the drive-through Tuesday through Sunday open for you to grab and go with your food. You can download their app on the Google Play or Apple App Store. Have everything at your fingertips by searching Millhouse Market. Pick up your food right there in the drive-through window and be on your way. From their homemade sandwiches to salads, breads, desserts, quinoa bowls, rice bowls, and brick oven pizzas, everything is at your fingertips at the Millhouse Market. Truly worth the drive every time out to 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York. And with that being stated here, happy to be back inside of the Cafe Kubal studios with you, hanging out here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You're listening on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as on wakeupcalldt.com. You're watching on Facebook Live on facebook.com/livenowdt, and of course on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt as well. So plenty of ways to connect with the show, and I'm very excited, very happy to have the man on the broadcast here, Mr. Mike Kitts, to round out this beginning of the final week of March here in 2021. So without further ado, let's bring him in. Mike, how we doing?
Good, Dan. Thanks for having me on. Watching a lot of basketball. So far we have not too many controversial plays with the referee, so it's going good as far as J.D. Collins is concerned, because he's the one that's coordinating this tournament that's going on in Indianapolis right now.
And I wanted to speak with you on that. I mean, obviously, as a coordinator of officiating, working with so many conferences with you, with the MAC and the Horizon and so on and so forth, you have your hands in a lot of different places and overseeing a lot of places. So what can you tell me about, what you've seen so far, and if you feel that, the NCAA tournament here with men's basketball has gone off well officiating-wise?
Yeah, I've been following it closely. I do talk to J.D. Collins occasionally, and it's a big production that the NCAA put on, and so far in Indianapolis, it's going good. I've talked to a lot of the referees that are out there. They're kind of in a mini bubble. They don't leave their hotel room. When they do leave their hotel room, they get in the bus and they go over to that, I think it's a Cleveland Indians AAA team, and they let them run around the outfield and throw a football and frisbee around them. But that's about the only thing they're letting the referees do out there. I know they'll find out after the games today and tomorrow what 10 guys get picked for the Final Four. They got 6 guys who work the semis and 3 separate guys who work the final, and 1 will be an alternate. So I know a lot of the guys are waiting to see what they hear from. The big talk a week ago or so was the 6 guys that got sent home because of contact tracing. I know Roger Ayers tested positive for the COVID. He was pretty sick. I've talked to him. And Valentine got sent home, and Ray Natili and Kip Kissinger. I think John Gaffney. There were 6 of them got sent home, and a couple of them weren't happy, but it wasn't the NCAA's rules. It's the CDC guidelines for the state of Indiana. So that's what I've heard so far.
And that, the officials having to go home and the, the issues with that, and obviously this being a very unique time in our history as human beings, not just Americans, but all over the world. I mean, what can you say to that? I mean, right as the NCAA tournament was starting, there was that note of officials, having to be sent home and contact tracing and all of that. So what can you say to that? I mean, obviously the expectation was that something could happen, but when it did happen, how do you feel things were handled? And what can you say to the effect of, the fact that, this is livelihood. There's a lot of people that obviously love their jobs and love what they get to do, and having that taken away, especially at this level, at this stage.
Yeah, I felt for the guys that got sent home. The one thing I looked at more importantly was Roger Ayers was pretty sick. I think he spent a couple days in the hospital battling this thing that I went through about a year ago. And when you look at it in that sense, it's kind of basketball's not that important when somebody's sick like that. So I know it's their livelihood. They don't get paid unless they referee, but I know the officials got to Indianapolis, whether their hotel was ready or not. That's what I've been hearing. And it wasn't ready, so the 6 of them went out to dinner and, sat around the dinner table for a couple hours. And, they when they came back and Roger tested positive that night. They all got tested that night. They got tested every day, as a matter of fact. They're still getting tested. But when he tested positive, and they asked him again who you're with, for how long, and that was the rule, but set down by the state of Indiana, and they all were sent home. So.
Yeah, and to go through that, I mean, you went through this, like you said, you were one of like the initial people here in the community of Central New York to get sick. You went through this. It is no joke. I mean, I was very concerned for you through the process, and I remember you were supposed to come on the air, and I hadn't heard from you, which was very atypical. And then you ended up telling me, like, you didn't even say what it was at first. You said, hey, Dan, I'm not feeling that well, and I'm going to have to reschedule, which was also atypical. And then after a couple weeks or so, I tried to get in touch with you, and then I ended up getting in touch with your son, who's been on the show, and talking with Mike, and him telling me that you were in the hospital and, that you were, fighting. And I mean, it was such a strange and surreal thing, because this was, like I said, at kind of the beginning of it all for America, for Central New York. And here you are in the hospital. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if you were okay. I'm praying for you every day. And then you get to come home, which is one of the most amazing things, because you're somebody that I consider a close friend, and I have a lot of love and appreciation for you. So this whole looking at, you want to play the games and you want to do what you could do, but you witnessed what it's really, really like to go through this. And the games are important and getting to see them is great. But what is far, far greater and a million times more important times a million is the health and safety of everybody involved. And you know that better than anybody.
Yeah, it's just a situation I went through that I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's surreal. I know a year ago when we were in Atlantic City for the Metro Atlantic tournament, everybody was kind of, the COVID thing was kind of new, and, you did your fist pumping and all that stuff. But, when I got home and got sick and, went in quarantine, that wasn't working. Then my son called the ambulance. It was something that, the hard part was you're there and you couldn't have any visitors, which was not good, but you're in the room by yourself and you don't know which way it's going to go. And it's just, I'm kind of lucky it went the way it did. I'm glad it went the way it did. So, the basketball season, we had our tournament again in Atlantic City, which really went well. And then the Gazelle group, which has tournaments during the season, had a little tournament in Daytona Beach, which I got referees for. And I was there for a few days down Daytona Beach, watching referees down there, which Mike refereed a couple games down there. So, it's all good. Going to meet some guys tonight to watch the games at a place called Jammers tonight. And I'm going to watch the games at 7, whatever time they are tonight, 7 and 9:30, whatever. So that's my schedule for today, watching a couple games.
I got a lot to get into here with you, Kitsy. And first one, a couple things here. I had somebody write in, and their questions that they have for you as a former official and overseeing officiating. I said they have 2 issues with the tournament this year. Number one, offensive players are driving in and creating contact with the defender who remains vertical, and the refs are putting him on the line for 2. I would like to see a play on. And then number 2, player takes a 3-point shot, ball's out of his hand, defensive player brushes shoulder, arm, elbow, and ref gives shooter 3 shots. So your thoughts on offensive players driving in, creating contact with the defender who's remaining vertical, and the refs putting them on the line, and then the grazing of a shooter after the ball's already out of his hand on a 3 and going to the line. So basically, both of these being asked by Mike, and I appreciate, Mike, you sending that question in. Both of these concerns coming in having to do with defenders trying to play defense and the offensive player ending up on the free throw line.
Yeah, in that first play, illegal defender's 2 feet on the floor facing the offensive player.
Yeah.
And he's allowed to move backwards, sideways, or obliquely. And I think that's becoming the hardest call in basketball right now, is the offense-initiated contact by the offensive player going into a legal defensive player. And we're seeing that more and more. The big part is when a guy beats the initial defender, which is a primary defender, and now he gets picked up by a second defender, that person in the arc below the basket, he cannot stand still. He's got to leave his feet. If he's standing there and the guy hits him right in his chest, it's still a blocking foul because he's not a legal defender in the arc. And we're seeing that more and more getting called incorrectly also. But I agree with the question about the offense-initiated contact. It looks terrible. It should be an offensive foul or no call, and the defense, who is legal, should not be penalized. The second one on the three-point shot, the guy's allowed to go straight up in the air to shoot the ball as the offensive player. He's allowed to come back to the floor. If I go into his space at all, and make contact with him, he's still a legal offender till his 1 foot comes to the floor. So if he gets brushed on the arm, brushed on the hand, brushed on the elbow, he's still a shooter until his 1 foot comes to the floor. Would I like a guy to pass on that play after the shot's gone and it has no effect on it? Of course I wouldn't want that call, but sometimes some referees have better judgment than others, and that's why some referees go further than other guys, because they got better judgment and they make the right call in that situation.
Yeah, and Mike, I mean, for you, are those the toughest, or what is the toughest call being made right now? Because, I mean, sitting there watching the games this weekend, I have questions too on things that just didn't make sense to me, or I saw something called in one game and then not called in the other, and I was sitting there with my dad yesterday, and I was like, continuity to me is critical, that if you're going to say this is a foul in the Gonzaga game, then it's got to be a foul in the Arkansas game. And so, and if it's not, then it's not, conversely. So what would you say is the most difficult call to make, or the most questionable call that you've seen in the tournament at this point?
Against the block charge plays, second is illegal defender. Was he there before the offensive player went up in the air? I think that's a hard call. I don't think it's a hard call because I've reffed a lot. And if I referee the defense as a legal offender, does he have 2 feet on the floor facing him? And was he there before the offensive player went in the air and crashed into the guy? We had a play, I think it was in the Alabama-UCLA game yesterday, where it was a pass-off and a crash. No whistle was blown on the play, and it resulted in a layup for one of the teams. Which those guys, somebody should have had a whistle on that. It's either got to be the lead because it's coming at the lead. The lead is the guy in the baseline, or it could have been the center official, which is the guy at the foul line extended. So neither guy made a call. It was not a good play. Created a little controversy for a play that should have been called. Whenever you have a crash, whether it's a pass-off, a lot of times you'll see the play where a guy comes down and passes off and stops dead. And then a guy will try to pick it and he'll fall down. It's the guy who comes down, passes, and runs through the defensive player who's legal is the play they want to call as far as a charge.
Yeah, and what I've seen in some of these games too is, especially down the lane, when a defender goes to shift, set their feet, face the offensive player, and they're still moving a little bit. And what I've seen in this is I've seen a guy try to take a charge who was set, who got in front of him before he got to him in the lane, got in front of the offensive player, set his feet, and they call a defensive foul. Then I see the ones where the guy is still moving. He's still moving his feet a little bit. He's not even full body set or even facing him completely, and that's been called a charge. So, I mean, are you seeing a lot of that? Because, I remember just sitting watching the game saying to myself, this guy's not set, and that was called a charge. And then this guy, this guy is set, and this is called a blocking foul. I know that this is something throughout history that's been an issue, but, in the tournament, especially coming down the stretch in these big-time games and big-time moments, I know that there's human error, but I've really struggled with the charge block because all these things these defenders are being asked to do, some of them are doing them extremely, what looks to be very correctly, and they're getting called for the foul. And then other guys, we're seeing this charge come about, and I'm like, the guy wasn't even set. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's just it's a hard play. When I'm watching the games, I kind of watch it from a different perspective than other people who just got some vested interest in watching it. I'm watching the referees and their position and the calls they're making. And again, that play where, you can still be moving as a defensive player and still get an offensive foul based on you're allowed to move backwards, sideways, or obliquely. And it's just when I watch referees when they miss a play, they're not looking at the right thing. They're getting caught surprised, and they just don't get it right. And most of the guys who are doing these games right now, I got a lot of confidence in them. Yeah. I've talked to a couple today that got games tonight. One of the guys got the Oregon State. Who are they playing tonight? Houston game tonight.
Yeah.
The team that beat Syracuse. And we were talking about just the way Houston plays. Houston's a team, as you're well aware, watching the other against Syracuse. They get up and defend. They make everything that you got to make a lot of decisions as a referee based on their style of play, getting up and getting into you. So it's going to be. I think it's going to be a hard game tonight with Oregon State. And again, when you watch a team like Houston play, they're a tough, hard team to referee. Just the other day when they got up in Syracuse's, grill, and Syracuse had a tough time getting shots off, and they get a shot off the first 2 or 3 air balls, and they were defend. They're going to defend tonight. So I think it's going to be a hard game tonight. At Oregon State and Houston game tonight. So,
and I definitely, this is crucial time, and you know what it's like to be in the NCAA tournament in the Final Four and on that stage. How do you, if somebody comes to you with jitters, if someone comes to you with nerves because this is their first NCAA tournament or first Final Four or whatever it may be, I mean, they could have been doing a ton of them, but it's just the feeling of it all, or with social media now and whatnot, what would you say to an official who, knows that, every single play counts, every single call counts, whether they blow the whistle or keep it in their pocket, so to speak. This all counts in a normal game and a normal run of play. But on this stage, do you have to handle any type of anxiety? And did you ever have anxiety yourself on the stage?
I think, it's funny you asked that question. Back in my first Final Four in 1996, when I had Kentucky, UMass, Syracuse was playing Mississippi State, the Meadowlands. That's probably the only time I was ever nervous before a game. Other than that, it really wasn't. But I was a little nervous before the game. I kept telling myself, Mike, when you blow your whistle, you got to be right. If you miss something, the team can, get by that mistake. When you blow your whistle, whether you call a travel and take the ball away, or a foul that you missed, a team has a chance to make up for it in the last 20 minutes of the game or 28 minutes. The other thing I talk about when I refereed was that in the last 3 minutes of the game, you can't miss a call. And the team, if it's a 1, 2, 3 point game, you put a guy at the foul line and didn't get fouled, he makes 2 free throws. Now it's a 5-point game, and the team has a tough time to make that points up again. But I always one of those referees that when the game was going on, I had timeouts. I'd sit there and stand there and say, "Okay, Mike, get your head in the game. You can't miss a call. When you blow your whistle, you gotta be right." And that's the way I always looked at it.
For you, when you look at, and like you said, the last 3 minutes, you can't miss a call. Do you feel that this tournament has been plagued with some issues within the last 3 minutes? Have you seen that?
I didn't until a couple plays in the UCLA Alabama game from last night. There was a couple plays that probably should have been called. A kid shooting a shot for Alabama got hit on the elbow, and then charge play. But other than that, I haven't seen a lot of games where you're even talking about the referees or. That's what the NCAA wants. When you ref those games, they want you no controversy. When you get involved in controversy, more than likely you're not going to move on, because I experienced that in the years I was refereeing a tournament. So you know what the NCAA wants. And as far as the games have gone on, pretty well. There hasn't been a lot of chatter about refereeing. So even with those 6 guys who are kind of high-profile referees that were sent home, it's worked out pretty good so far for J.D. Collins and the NCAA.
Here with Mike Kitts, a longtime NCAA official, as well as a current coordinator of officiating for men's basketball with a bunch of different conferences around here. To go to what we've seen here with one of the teams that made it to the tournament, and obviously got a tough draw as a 15 seed. But you have the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, and the MAAC and the MAC, and overseeing that as the coordinator of officiating, you have Iona. And overseeing Iona, you have Rick Pitino. How surreal and strange is it to have Rick Pitino in the MAC? And, to see kind of like this other coming of Rick Pitino, this new chapter of him. And what can you say about Iona and what he's done there, and if you feel like he can be dangerous?
Yeah, I think he's at a place where he's pretty comfortable. I don't think he took the job for the money, to be honest with you. I think he'll get it going there. I was just reading, I look at these articles all the time, the transfer portal, which Boeheim brought up. He might have some kids leaving because they can leave and not have to sit out a year. So, you get some kid that's unhappy, he's going to leave. And there's quite a few in that transfer portal, which I'm sure Patino will go after. He's pretty good at that, picking up kids like that. And, he was good to deal with. I didn't have a lot of issues with Rick as far as officiating. Again, he had a situation where I think he played December 22nd, then had 51 days off because of contact tracing or quarantine or whatever Iona went through. So they didn't play a lot of games, and the seeding was based on a number of wins in the Metro Atlantic, which I didn't think that the Siena-Iona game, that game should have been a semifinal game in that tournament in Atlantic City. It was a great game. Iona came back and beat Siena by like 5 or 6, and they were down like 39-30. But, Rick's done a good job there. He'll do a good job anywhere he goes. So I think hopefully he's happy that Iona stays there and gets some recruits and keeps doing a good job.
And we see that, in the disrespect of seeding, not just with Iona, but Loyola Chicago. And Sister Jean, at 101 years old, seems to have a better gather on things than the committee in the NCAA themselves, at least in my opinion. What do you think when she made the statement of, why would you put these two teams against each other? She said, coming from the state of Illinois, you would think that they would want to support both of us and not pit us against each other so early. We look at Illinois and Loyola Chicago. I had Loyola Chicago beating the number 1 seed as the 8. They did. But what was your take on that? I mean, the complete, and because you cover conferences that are consistently disrespected. Loyola Chicago comes in as an 8 seed, and they pit them against Illinois in the round of 32. What were your thoughts on that and the seeding of it all? I mean, we've seen number 15 Oral Roberts. We're seeing other teams around the country, what they've been able to do. North Texas as a 13 seed. We saw Ohio as a 13 seed. A lot of these conferences that aren't in the quote-unquote Power 5, these teams that aren't in there, have just been kind of thrown to the wayside, unless Gonzaga, but Gonzaga had to fight like hell for years to get it. What is your take on Loyola Chicago, Illinois, and was that the wrong call to put them as an 8 and have them fight against a number 1 seed in the second round of the tournament?
Yeah, when I saw that matchup, I just said, that's something that the NCAA does. They seem to do it every year with a matchup. Why they do that, I don't know. It would have been nice to see those two teams in different regions where maybe they would play each other in the Sweet 16 to get to 8, or 8-4. And it just, when you look at it, go back and look over the years of the NCAA, they just, I don't know if they want to create controversy, which they do all the time. And I think with that matchup, they created it, which I have no control over that, but I didn't agree with it.
Yeah, as far as watching this tournament, though, Mike, you've seen teams in and out of the quote-unquote Power 5. How much is basketball changing? Is it still in the process of changing? Has it changed already, in your opinion? When you look at things and you look at, the teams that are advancing forward and even, teams that are in the quote-unquote, Power 5 and yet are not the teams that people typically think about when, we're talking about Oregon State or we're talking about like an Arkansas and whatnot. What is your take when we're seeing teams like the North Texases and the Ohios and the Drakes, as well as, other teams not always thought of like a Colorado team or an Abilene Christian who just became a D1 men's basketball team in 2013-14 and their first ever NCAA tournament win is over a 3-seed Texas. To see all that happening, to see Rick Pitino at Iona, to see, what some of these other teams like a Loyola Chicago are doing, what Gonzaga has done for over a decade, what Oral Roberts did that almost put them in the Elite Eight to just losing by 2 points. When this is happening more and more and more, what is happening to the NCAA? Has it already happened? Is it still in the process of happening? But, you've been an official within the quote-unquote Power 5, and you've been an official outside of that. So that there's talent all over the place. So what are you seeing?
What you're seeing was like a team like Loyola, where it's like a cycle. All those teams, those mid-major teams, are keeping the kids for 4 years. The big-time programs are keeping it 1 or 2 years. They go after the star players, and they leave after 1 year or 2 years, like Kentucky and a lot of players at Duke now. But the teams that, like the Loyola Chicago's, the Oral Roberts, all those teams are senior-laden teams in their experience. So when they get to these situations, they're not in awe of who they're playing against because they've been around 3 or 4 years. And it's a fourth-year senior. Maybe they got 4 or 5, the 5 kids are seniors on that team. So I see it more and more that when it comes this time of year, you're going to see those teams that have the mid-major teams that keep the kids around for 4 years. And they seem to do well. They play well together, and they know each other. And that's why they knock these teams off. When you get those 15 seeds like Oregon State playing today and Loyola, they knock the teams off because they're senior-laden teams, and they're very experienced.
We've seen, so many changes come through that. You talked about the transfer portal. Is there any, and I could be way off in this thought, but it's just a thought that came to my mind, Mike. Being an official and having a certain conference that you officiate year in and year out, when an official has that and they start to realize like the tendencies of players and different things that go on, is this going to challenge an official more so because of the transfer portal and you don't have to wait anymore? And we already saw NCAA college football free agency. We're continuing to see that. Now we'll see college basketball free agency as it was going there anyways. Does this challenge an official more because the thought of realizing a team and the players and the tendencies and the makeup and the whatnot can constantly be changing so much that you can't really get to know it? Is there any thought to that? Am I just way off base here, or what are your thoughts?
No, it's I would hope that these referees or ref these games maybe played a little bit of basketball. And when I was refereeing, I could tell what the teams are going to run as far as offensively and defensively. And, after 3 or 4 minutes, you know what they're trying to do as far as dumping the ball down low, screening, elbow plays, jump shots. So, you kind of figure out what the teams are doing. The things with the transfer portal right now, it's huge right now. And like I mentioned earlier, they don't have to sit out. You're going to get a player who was at a school, highly recruited, and he's not getting the shots he should be getting, or he's not getting the playing time he should be getting, and he's going to leave. And it's just the way the business is right now. And because I think we coddle these kids at such a young age now, it's 6th, 7th grade. And now as the kids grow up, everything's been given to them, and they think that's it's entitlement. And they're not happy because they got I think the main thing they got is an AAU coach banging their ear. He's not playing enough. You're not getting enough shots. You got to leave there. You can go somewhere else. And that's what's happening now. It's just kids aren't happy, and they got either a parent or an AAU coach that's banging in their ear, telling them, we got to get out of here. Let's go to this other school now. And you don't have to sit out a year. So that's going to happen. It's prevalent more now than it's ever been. So it's going to keep happening, and kids are going to leave.
Seeing all these changes, you've seen so many different things in your time covering, covering college basketball. Being an official, being a coordinator, officiating, you've seen so many changes. Now you've seen a pandemic. Now you're seeing the transfer portal go crazy. Mike, I would like to tell you that, and I would like to think that as a fine wine, as time goes by, that this game, doesn't look too crazy, but it only seems to, with a pandemic and the transfer portal and everything going on and this entitlement that you brought up, that it's very different. It's very new. Some teams use a big man. Some teams have no idea what that even means. So, we've seen so many different changes and the NCAA pushing for more scoring, which has made it a hell of a lot easier to foul somebody. What do you not like, and what do you like about the evolution of basketball, having seen so much over the years?
What's happened now is a video. It's so up to date right now in video that you got to beat the tape as a referee. There was plays when I was refereeing that I could say it wasn't a foul, just to give the team back the ball out of bounds. If I missed a foul, you can't do it anymore because they're going to show the tape that you missed the call, and then you're going to give the team back that shouldn't be getting the ball back. You can't say, well, I gave it back to him because I missed the foul. You can't do that anymore. The video is going to beat you. And the other thing is the social media thing is just that I tell the referees to stay off this stuff. Don't care what people are saying about you. Just stay off it. Don't make any statements. It's getting harder and harder as a referee. And the games are getting harder. They mean a lot. There's a lot of money out there. And it's just, I think refereeing, I wouldn't want to be refereeing right now. I think it's too hard of a job. And it's going to take a unique individual to be mentally tough and strong to referee these games because you're under a microscope. You know, if you miss a play, you're on ESPN for the next 3 days showing the play. And it's just, it's a hard job, and it's just, I think it's not going to get any easier in the years to come.
So, I mean, and that's the thing, though, chasing down the video, being quicker than the video. And like you said, the makeup call. You know, people make jokes about it, but the makeup call where, you know, if you made a mistake, you give the ball back to them, but now you can't because, you know, they'll see it on the tape and whatnot. Now that that's gone, I mean, how does an official... how do they kind of right the ship and balance it if they make a mistake and they know they make a mistake? Like, where is the human side to this right now with all of this instantaneous media?
You can't make it up. Here's what I tell officials. There's situations during a game that you miss something. You know you did. You can't make it up, but you can, if you're presented with a situation to make the same call at the other end or non-call based on how the team's playing, and the player gives you that opportunity to call a foul on him, you just can't call a foul and make it up. But there's going to be situations during the next 3 or 4 possessions where you might be having an opportunity where, okay, if something happens similar to the play I missed down there, I can do the same thing at this end. So it's kind of a game within a game when you're refereeing. And you know, people call it makeup. They're not makeups because something's got to happen. So if it does happen, I can make it up at this end if you want to say makeup. But it's a foul which I'm calling that maybe I missed at the other end. It's something that referees talk about. They think like I do as a referee, and it's something that is in the game as a referee. That if you haven't refed, it's hard to explain. But you know, I did the best I could.
You talk about within the last 3 minutes, especially. You can't mess up a call. The foul away from the ball call, where do you think that lives in the last 3 minutes when a guy's taking a shot and somebody else might be underneath the basket trying to position and whatnot? I mean, where does that fall in your mind, the foul away from the ball? And is that a call that you really think should be made within the last 3 minutes, so to speak? I mean, obviously, if something's egregious, I get it, but where does that lie in it all?
You know, it's again having good judgment. If a play happens off the ball, it's got to be a takedown. I mean, it has nothing to do with the play that's going on. I'm not saying you can't call it, but it's got to be a situation where everybody in the play sees it. It's like when I was refereeing, I always knew who the star players were, and when they got their third foul, their fourth and fifth foul better be ones that grandmother up in the 50th row can see the foul.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be like that. I mean, you got to know that as a referee. What happened? These guys are starting because they're good players. The guys on the bench aren't as good as the 5 guys on the court, so you want those 5 guys on the court on the game as long as possible. So when you get a guy in foul trouble and he sits down, the guy coming off the bench is not as good. That's why he's not starting. So the game doesn't go as smooth. So when you got the better players out there starting 5 for both teams, things seem to go a lot smoother. So when you do get somebody in foul trouble, that means the guy that's coming in, that's not good enough to start, but he's going to play now because the other guy's in foul trouble. So, you know, there's a lot of things you think about. So that's the way I did it.
How difficult is it for a big man today cannot be called for a foul? Because sometimes I see that, if you're like a Jesse Edwards and you're right around flirting with 7 foot, that it's easy to call a foul on him, it feels like. But then if he's going to the basket, and I see this with other big men around the country, it's almost like they're faulted for being too big on offense, but then they're punished for being too big on defense.
Yeah, I agree. I think the guy, the player, I don't know his name, the guy at Illinois, the big man in the middle. I mean, I thought he got called for some fouls that were just because he was so big. And that happens at even Division III. When you get a big guy at Division III, it seems like maybe they stick out more because how big they are and how tall they are, that maybe, the referees maybe look for that stuff, which I wish they didn't. But, there's not a lot of big guys that play with the back to the basket anymore when you watch college basketball now. Yeah. Most of the guys are playing, facing the basket now, and that's what they want, a guy that can put the ball on the floor a little bit, 1 or 2 dribbles at the most. So there's not a lot of guys that are playing with the back to the basket anymore.
And the teams that do, Gonzaga obviously still does that. Is that a competitive advantage in your opinion that we've gone away from it so much yet? And I think were you talking about Kofi from Illinois?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's yep.
So but to look at a team like Gonzaga, is that the competitive advantage? I mean, teams that have a big man, in your opinion, is that a way to last in the tournament because it's a lost art? Because, I mean, what I saw Gonzaga do, the clinic they put out, first and foremost, the way they pass the ball, the way they move the ball, the vision that they have, their ability to reset and get something running, multiple different shooters having success, and their inside game and their ability to just hit from tough angles, good angles, close in, get offensive rebounds. Gonzaga does all this fundamental stuff that's not like, it's not crazy to think like this is fundamental basketball, but when I watch them, I feel like I'm back in the 80s. I'm back in the 90s. I'm back in a time where it was like, oh, there's a big man. Does Gonzaga, in your opinion, and teams like that, have a competitive advantage because of how they play around the rim and because they don't even have one big guy? They have multiple big guys that can just face you up and shoot over you.
I watched that whole game yesterday, Creighton Gonzaga game, which Creighton's not a bad team. And
right.
I mean, they just were just overwhelmed by Gonzaga and the way they pass the ball. I just think the team is the best team in the country. I've watched them a few times this year, not a whole lot, but they just do a lot of good. It seems like every time they turn around, they're running something where they have a look at a layup or something, or an 8-foot jump shot. They do so many good things, and I don't think a team can prepare themselves for what they're going to see. I think, we can go out, they're going to run up on the court, they're shooting every 14 seconds, fastest shooting team in the country. But I don't think you realize how good they are until you play against them. I think Creighton felt that, same way what I'm talking about right now. They probably walk off the court and say, this team is really, really good. And they do a lot of good things. And every one of them, 5 of them can put the ball on the floor. They all can shoot from the outside. They all go to the basket. They all can pass the ball. I mean, for somebody to beat that team in this tournament, the teams, they got to shoot about 28%. The other team's got to shoot about 60%.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Gonzaga has an answer to, almost every question out there, I would say, and that's why they are where they are, and that's why they're successful. 20, to see 20 plus games, no losses, the only undefeated team in Division I men's basketball this season of over 300 schools, and you touched on it, Mike. But to go a little bit deeper into it, Gonzaga keeps winning. You know what I mean? And even in a pandemic, and people don't understand, they had to stop too. In the beginning of their season, they had a COVID stop. They had a COVID pause, and just like a lot of other teams, but Kentucky didn't look like themselves, Kansas didn't look like themselves, Duke didn't look like themselves, and here's Gonzaga. What does it say to you about Mark Few and Gonzaga and what they do and how they run it, that entire program, that when nobody looks the same, for the most part, almost nobody looks the same in a pandemic of over 300 schools, here's Gonzaga looking just as strong, just as fierce, and a number 1 seed again?
Yeah, Mark Few was just an unbelievable job there. He's happy. He's not looking for anything bigger than that. I went to a few of his games. I did a couple at Gonzaga when he was coaching there.
Yeah.
I had him a couple times in the NCAA tournament. Class act, does nothing to embarrass a referee, ask questions when he should ask questions. And, whatever his formula is for the way he's got his kids to play, is somebody else should look at it. I got a call yesterday. I won't mention from who. You and I'll talk about this some other time, from a coach that's coaching out in the West. And he was talking about Gonzaga yesterday. And he was talking about his team not having a good year. And he went for kind of a quick fix and get some junior college transfers, which didn't work out for him. And he said, Mike, I'll never go that route again. I just got to get some better players. But we just talked about the games, and, we talk maybe once a month. But he was very interested in telling me how good he thinks Gonzaga is.
Yeah, an incredible team. Mike, before I let you go, Mike Kitt's here with us, a longtime NCAA official and coordinator currently of men's basketball officiating for numerous conferences, including the likes of the Horizon and the MAC, the MAAC. Mike, are you surprised at the teams up by 1, up by 2, whatever it may be, especially when they're up by 2, or if it's a tie, or if they're up by 3 and a 3 would tie it, so to speak? When we look at all of those situations, up by 1, up by 2, up by 3, are you baffled by the fact that teams are not committing a foul and letting that 3-point shot go up that could either go for the win or go for the tie? Because we saw that yesterday, and we've seen it a bunch of times. Are you baffled by the fact that teams are not fouling in a situation where they can lose on that last second 3-pointer or have to go to overtime?
Yeah, my situation when I was refereeing, I would go up to the coach after he got his timeout and say to the coach who's up by 3 points, am I looking for a foul? Or are you going to play straight up defense? Because I want to know. They all tell me what they're going to do. And like in that game at UCLA last night in Alabama, I would have went up to Mick Cronin and say, Mick, are you going to foul in this play? You're going to play straight up defense. And why they don't foul is beyond me. He gives a wide open 3-pointer, which is a great shot by Alabama to tie it up and go overtime. But if you foul with 4.2, it's going to get inbounded. Probably a second's going to go off. Now you got 3.2 or whatever left on the clock. Everything has to go right. You got to make the first one. You got to miss the second one. You got to get the rebound, and you got to put the ball in the basket. And I don't understand when you're up by 3, why don't you foul? Especially with 10 seconds or less on the game clock. I'm not coaching. I always ask when I was refereeing, Coach, what do you want to do in this play? What are you going to do? And they always tell Mike, we're going to play straight up. Or Mike, we're going to have a guy take one dribble and foul him.
Yeah.
To put him at the line to shoot a 1-on-1 or 2, whatever. So I did that one game. Who was it? In Dayton, Siena was playing Ohio State. And Thad Mata was coaching Ohio State. And Siena upset him in double overtime. It's a 3-point game in the first overtime. And Thad Mata tells me the kid's going to foul. Don't give up the 3. So the kid didn't foul him, and the kid from Siena made the 3 to make it go in another overtime. And I said to Thad before the second overtime started, I go, Thad, he goes, Mike, I forgot to tell the player to foul him. I said, no, Thad and I always laugh about that right now. Every time he sees us, well, Mike, I can't believe I didn't tell my player to foul him. I told you I was going to foul him, but I didn't tell my player.
Yeah.
So.
Well, at least he told somebody. But, one of the other things is, and we saw this yesterday too, which was diving for the loose ball. When you dive and you slide with the ball in your hand, to me, I always knew growing up playing the game that if I dive for a loose ball, I got to jump on that ball and I have to have it in my hands, but not be bouncing around, or sliding across the court and whatnot. We saw that happen. I definitely saw that happen last night in one of the games, and the slide for the ball, and then I was like, okay, he got the ball, he could probably call a timeout, but then he lost the handle on it, and when he lost the handle, his teammate slid across the floor with the ball, and there was no travel called. Bring me into these are two the double dribble and the travel and all this good stuff. So bring me into that, chasing down a loose ball and sliding on the floor with the loose ball. Is that supposed to be a travel? From what I know, And then secondly, a totally different point, why can you carry the basketball? Back in the day, if you put your palm under the ball and flipped it over, it was called a travel. You know, it was a carry, whatever. And now we don't see that anymore because, I mean, was this just the NCAA saying, hey, 70% of the players do it, so we're just going to change the rule? So bring me into those two plays.
Yeah, the first one about when you dive for a loose ball on the floor, the referee has to take into consideration your momentum.
Right.
So if I dive, say I dive head first, okay, and I got the ball out in front of me, if I roll over to make a pass, that's a travel. If I dive sideways and my momentum, I catch a ball and I slide 6 feet, and if I stay on my side and make that pass, it's not a travel. And I got the ball out in front of me. If I roll over
part
to
of
make
the
a pass, that's
decision-making process by the
if I
referee
dive sideways
to call a travel.
The one thing, the point of emphasis here, as far as we've seen a few times, is there's a loose ball on the floor. A player has it, then another player dives on top of him. Okay, to tie it up, that's an automatic foul now. We're getting too many players are diving on top of players when they have the ball. I saw it twice yesterday where they call a foul, which that's what they want to call. And but you know, in the travel play, his momentum, you got to wait till he quits sliding because of his momentum, and then you decide what he does after that constitutes a walk. What was the other one you asked?
About the carry, how you can put your hand under the basketball and flip it over now, which I could never do playing the game, and Allen Iverson could do, but then the rest of the NBA couldn't do it, and now that's all I see. All I see is carry. I mean, did the NCAA just say, hey, more than half the league is carrying the ball, so let's just change the rule? I mean, why can you carry a basketball now? You know,
it's changed over the years as far as even the Euro step now. It used to be a walk all the time.
Yeah.
But now they let the players do that. The thing with a carry, though, if you can picture, if I'm dribbling the ball and my hand's on the side of it, okay?
Yeah.
The only time I want referees to call a carry is what Iverson used to do is he used to almost hold it in his hand for a split second and freeze the defensive player to create an advantage for him to get by him.
Yeah.
So when a player carries the ball and gets an advantage to get to the basket or to get by a guy, and if it's a blatant carry, it's for a referee, for me, for them to call that, it's got to be a blatant carry to freeze the defensive player to get by him, to create an advantage either for himself or to pass to another guy. So you don't see it too often. It doesn't get called, and the Euro step doesn't get called. So that's the way the game has changed in the last 10 years.
And then the last note is Gonzaga in their game against Creighton. You see the ball handler still before half court dribbles up, bumps into his teammate, and when he bumps his teammate, the ball seems to graze his teammate, and then he keeps dribbling, and he's called for a double dribble. Was that the right call or the wrong call?
You know, that was the wrong call in the game. It was just because it grazed the other player. I mean, he can still dribble it. It's just what happens when referees see those situations? They don't happen too often. So most of the time when it happens, a referee's surprised by the play.
Yeah. Okay.
And he got surprised by that play, and he called it based on it looking funny rather than what the rule really was.
Coming from Mike Kitts. Kitsy, I put up a picture, and I gotta put it up here on. Because it's on our social media. There's one of you smiling with Rob Murphy, who I know well, and it looks like you're having yourself a good time with him. But I got to put another one up here in the studio, which is the one I've carried on social media. And that picture that we have up here in the studio right now is you with your hand over your face as John Calipari. Yeah. So do you remember that moment?
Yeah. He was asking some stupid question. I'm looking at the Rob Murphy one right now, as a matter of fact. It's funny you brought that up. The one with Calipari, John always asking some kind of stupid question. I don't know what that was.
Okay.
You know, I probably just listened to him and just said, "Okay, I'll listen to you, but I don't agree with you, to be honest with you." So I remember that picture.
It's a juxtaposition of you and Rob just having like a conversation versus you looking at John Calipari like, is this guy ever going to stop type of thing?
Yeah. That's John Calipari for you, but he meant well. He's a good guy. So they all just want to win. That's all it comes down to. Their jobs depends on wins and losses. I try to get that message to the referees, that just be fair, create a level playing field for both teams, and let the best team win.
And that coming from Mike Kitts, longtime NCAA official and coordinator of men's basketball officiating for numerous conferences, including the MAAC, the Horizon, and beyond. Mike, as always, I appreciate our conversations on the air, and I very much am looking forward to our upcoming one off the air. So
Dan.
I thank you, as always, for everything and your wealth of knowledge, and more than anything else, I'm proud to call you a friend, and I am so very happy that you are healthy. And I say prayers all the time, and you're a part of that. And I think at this point, I would love it if God would just let you have a very healthy, happy, and amazing go at it from here, because you scared me enough for like a 5-week period, so you're not allowed to scare me anymore.
Okay, Dan. Thanks for having me today, man. I appreciate it.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. That coming from Kitsy here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And that does it for today's broadcast. We went well over, under promise, over deliver. A fantastic trio of guests to start off the final week of March and to bring us into the Final Four. Jason Leone, Oswego State Lakers men's basketball head coach at the Division III level, which is an incredible. First and foremost, love Oswego. And secondly, there, NCAA Division III has such a big place in my heart. And I love the fact that Jason sees it, appreciates it, and respects it. And I wish that around the country we would get more of that respect. Mike Aresco, the American Athletic Conference, talking about respect. They deserve it too. Houston in the Elite Eight and the number one team in rebounding statistically going into the men's basketball D1 NCAA tournament, and also Memphis winning the NIT coming out of the American, and doing that in the state of Texas, where the American just moved their headquarters to, which is pretty ironic and pretty amazing and pretty special for a conference that deserves the best. And Mike Kitts coming to us here to speak on officiating and answer so many questions that I had on my mind over the weekend in general, that other people listening and watching had on their mind. That might be, I can't even say it's our best conversation, because I think every single conversation with Mike Kitts is the best and is amazing. I think you put them all together to make the best. But that one, to really get to, like, in real time, say, hey, Mike, I saw this yesterday. What do you see? What do you think? To get true answers from a true official is very, very much appreciated and very cool. And I think it brings a dynamic to Wake Up Call that is special. So for Jason, Mike, and Mike, thank you all so very much. Inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. I want to tell you all, if you're listening or watching for the first time, or if you come back here every day, thank you either way. Appreciate you so much. If you're a first-time listener and viewer, I hope we get you back. And if you're somebody who's here all the time, I thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you so very much. To all of our people that take the time, it really does mean a lot to me, and I cannot thank you enough for that. So with that being said, tune in live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, on YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, on MixLR.com/WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.com. After the show goes live, you can find them in our archives by searching any one of your favorite places, from Stitcher to TuneIn to Podbean and iHeartRadio, Spotify, MixLR, YouTube, and iTunes and Apple Podcasts by searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And thanks to our proud Central and Upstate New York partners that help us in the community to do everything that we can, especially now, to bring positivity. A piece of pizza, having somebody, do service on your car, a cup of coffee, taking care of your dog for the day. All of that goes such a long way. Grabbing a bag of kettle corn to watch the game tonight, going through the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A, whatever it may be, it means so much. Driving out to Millhouse Market to show that they are worth the drive every time. Everything that we do with these Central and Upstate New York partners has always meant something, but now more than ever they need you. So make sure you head out to Cafe Cubal, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, Honda City of Liverpool, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Pizza Man, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Millhouse Market, and Mon Paz Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. And 2 online promo codes you need to know, so write them down. Go to myavicolis.com, and when you order online, myavicollis.com, and use the promo code AVS10. That's AVS10. You can get 10% off your online orders at myevacoles.com throughout the week. And anywhere in the country, any one of the 50 states, including right here in our community, if you order at maandpazpopcorn.com for in-store pickup or delivery, either one, in-store pickup or delivery, but you have to do it online at maandpazpopcorn.com. Use my promo code DT20, that's DT20, and you get 20% off your orders. So if you're going to go over to 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool today to grab some kettle corn for the games tonight, go online and make your order so you can get 20% off, DT20, pick it up in the store. Or if you're buying it from out of town, if you're sending it to someone out of town, you go to maandpazpopcorn.com and use the promo code DT20, DT20, and get 20% off on me, and thanks to maandpazpopcorn.com. So, with all that being said, I appreciate you. I thank you. From inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, tomorrow we will go from inside of the studios to inside of Cafe Kubal, as I will be on site, on location for the first time ever at a location that we've never done a live show at before when it comes to Cafe Kubal. We've been to 324 West Water Street. We've been to 208 North Townsend Street. We've been upstairs to the podcasting headquarters with Gene Waldron last week at 208 North Townsend Street, right above the cafe at Kubal Co-works, where you can go there for your business, rent out some space, and do your podcasting there, have things edited there. We've also been to so we got so many different places to go to. We are going to be at 401 South Salina Street tomorrow, March 30th, for the entire show from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time with the CNS football team. Football is back. CNS will be with us. Head coach Dave Klein and the team will be inside a Cafe Kubal in downtown Syracuse. We're bringing the party to you to Cafe Kubal. So come out, get some coffee, get something to eat, hang out, and watch our show. And, of course, you can watch it online on Facebook.com/LiveNowDT. Tomorrow morning, Wake Up Call comes to you from Cafe Kubal, and it's all going straight through Facebook.com/LiveNowDT. So we'll see you at Cafe Kubal this Tuesday, March 30th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., 401 South Salina Street with CNS Football. In the meantime, find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT, and on wakeupcalldt.com, as well as all the avenues I told you can get the archives. God bless, no stress, do your best, as always. Have a fantastic day, and remember, God made you for a reason, and it wasn't to complain, it wasn't to sulk, it wasn't to be depressed, and it wasn't to be hateful and mean and angry. God made you to be happy, and that happiness is your own. It's not outside, it's inside. So let that happiness flow through you like a light, and be the light that you want to see in the world, as always. Be good, and I'll talk to you soon. God bless, people. Have a great day.